I like the options they have. You look at the last 9 starts, Anthony, that the Cardinals have had for their starting rotation, 1.86 ERA since that Sonny Gray start against Paul Skeens. These dudes have been rolling.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Brad Thompson on with the Fast Lane yesterday as the Cardinals get another much-needed victory. They are now back to 500 on the season. 4-1 victory against the Houston Astros yesterday. They go 4-2 on the homestand against Philly and Houston. We came back, Alex, after that Pittsburgh series and thought to ourselves, man, a brutal loss last Wednesday, about a week ago, and we came on the air and said, you lose that game, you're 2 games under 500, and now what lies ahead is a 6-game stretch at home against Philly and Houston. This feels like a potential teeter-totter moment for the St. Louis Cardinals season. Because if this goes poorly in the next 6 games, well, what lies ahead? A road trip to the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. So I know Atlanta has not played well this year. Dude, it's still the Braves.
Yeah.
You're going down there. We've seen some really bad trips down to Atlanta for this team in recent years. Didn't feel good. Well, instead, they stabilized things. And what was it that stabilized for them? It was the rotation. The rotation, as BT said, last 8 starts, a 1.8 ERA. I don't think you could expect that moving forward. Not to that degree. I mean, that'd be one of the best ERAs for a rotation in the history of Major League Baseball. So don't expect that. But they do appear to be better. And I remember after Eric Fetty started a couple of nights ago, we asked him, there feels like there's some momentum that is building among the starters. What happened? How did this take place? And he pinpointed a specific moment as to what led to this.
You know, like most things, hitting, winning, pitching well, it's contagious. You know, we're challenging ourselves. We want to do as good as the next guy, if not better. You know, that Boston series was really tough on us. And, you know, we kind of have our little just powwow of like, hey, we got to be better than this. And, you know, we said we were going to have one of the best 5 rotation we could, I think, before Sonny's last start. And, you know, we had a really good 5, and, you know, we're trying to do it again.
I don't know if you buy into that or not, Alex. A little bit of a like players only type of a meeting or not. How much does that matter? Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, a 3. Maybe. But it's not nothing, and clearly the results have followed. What do you make of the recent improvement among the Cardinal starters, especially with them going to that 6-man right now?
It's been impressive. I mean, look, there's out of the 6-man, there's about 3, 4 that I just don't trust, didn't trust going into this season, and my tune's changed a little bit. Look, Steven Matz has been consistent, and I've been one of his biggest critics. Eric Fetty, despite that one bad start that he's had, and look, the guy puts himself into trouble with the walks, but still finding ways to get out of the jam. I think the part that's been most impressive to me are the guys that have just stabilized this rotation. One is Sonny Gray, who has a total of 3 walks so far in his starts, which is just really impressive.
And he looked great his most recent outing.
Yeah.
Looked like himself.
And he's got the swing and miss stuff, which we already knew. Like, he is that stopper that the Cardinals have been desperate for. But really, it comes down to Liberatore and Palante. Like, these are 2 guys, and Liberatore, again, I've been a critic of his as well, but Liberatore and Palante, every time they've taken the mound, has been just stability for this team. I really like that Eric Fetty quote. I buy into this stuff more than you guys do, because it's like a hockey mainstay when you buy into these types of vibes. But look, if they're coming together after one bad weekend in Boston and saying, like, we've got to do better, and now they're doing this internal competition where one guy goes out, the next guy goes out to try and one-up him, that's a recipe for success. Is it going to last? Probably not. You're going to hit a wall at some point. But, man, if you can get this type of mentality from your pitching rotation in the month of April, you might be in a really good position come June or July.
This was my biggest concern coming into the season. I had a little bit more hopes on the offense, as is typically the case going into this season, than most others did. I was concerned, well, the rotation does not have much beyond Sonny Gray. I thought Eric Fetty would be fine, and I had real questions about basically everybody else in there. Palante, to me, is a back into the rotation starter. He pitches to contact a lot. You can live with that, especially when he's a cost-controlled player. But number 3 starter, Andre Palante, I don't know about all of that. Liberatore was more of an experiment than like a known commodity. And then Matz and Michaelis, good luck. I have no idea. But now you look at it, 3.1 ERA for Sonny Gray, 3.4 for Eric Fetty, and that includes a huge blow-up game. 3.9 for Matthew Liberatore, and he's eating innings for you. 2.1 ERA for Steven Matz, who's been great in short stints so far this year. Andre Palante's got a 2.2, and then there's Miles Michaelis as well. He has a 9.
It's just from one bad outing, okay? Don't cherry pick that.
It's not cherry picked at all. True. It's encompassing everything that he's done so far this year.
Everybody gives up 9 or 10 runs in one outing.
The rotation has been fine. And if you can get something approaching this, they have a 4.0 ERA as a staff so far this year. I'd probably sign up for that. And that's including the bullpen as well, which has had its blow-ups this year.
It's been better, though. I just looked at homestand, 10th in ERA in that time.
They were good.
Time frame.
Don't cherry pick.
Again,
that wasn't a cherry pick either.
Fernandez had a couple of bad outings. Helsley had a bad outing. Roycroft, just bad.
And he's down in the minors for a reason.
Exactly.
He's working on stuff.
Munoz is up and down, but now he's literally down.
He looks good.
I thought he was fine. This is a pitching staff that you can win with. I don't know that you can win because of them, but you can win with them, and that's all that the Cardinals were looking for coming into this season.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect way to frame it because, look, we talked about the offense on Monday. I think the offense is legit. I think this offense is going to be really good this season. And if that is the case, you just need stable pitching. Like, we ran through the numbers of a team that has an 800 OPS through the first 16 games, and there's only been, I think it was 3 teams that have missed the playoffs in the last decade that did that. Well, you know why they missed the playoffs? Because they didn't get good enough pitching. Terrible pitching. So if you can just have a fine rotation and a good enough bullpen, you're going to be successful. Like the way this formula that we just saw over the last eight games for the St. Louis Cardinals, where the pitching has been good for them, that's a team that will not finish below 500. If this formula, not the 1.38 ERA, but if they get good starting pitching, doesn't even have to be quality starts every time out. If they can just get good starting pitching along with a bullpen that can help them close things out and limit damage, then this will be a team that finishes above 500 and is potentially a playoff caliber team.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Alex, the other thing that has made them successful so far this year is something that does remind me a bit of the Blues. Couple of years, really, over the last few years with the Blues, it's been a head dip moment, right? We talked about this ad nauseum with them, where you get into the game, you're 12 minutes in, you feel like you've put the pressure on the opposition, but nothing goes in for you, and then boom, head dip moment. Puck goes in your net, and now everything starts to go to hell for you. The Cardinals have had those moments as well, but it's been more about the opportunity presenting itself for the Cardinals, and they can't take advantage. A lot of this is runners in scoring position. You've brought this up for the last couple of years, Alex, and it's been, at times, a point of frustration between the two of us.
You've gotten angry at me because I've gotten angry.
Because how many times did I say as my retort, yeah, I just love that they're getting the opportunities with runners in scoring position, and eventually they will come through, right? Well, they never did. It never happened. And Alex proved to be correct over the last couple of years. They just were not clutch, if you will. Well, this year, they are getting those opportunities, and they're coming through. They're a top 10 team with runners in scoring position by basically every metric so far this season. Alex, that to me is the difference. And it's not just the offense. For the most part, pitching-wise as well, you've seen Andre Palante go out there. He's got a bases-loaded jam situation. Is he going to get out of that every time? No, you can't count on that. Eventually, that will go the other way. But so far this year, for the most part, he's found a way to wiggle out of that adversity. The same thing has been true for a lot of these pitchers. They're finding ways out of jams. Your offense, when you have opportunities with runners in scoring position, or yesterday, Lars Nootbaar, 2 on, big spot, that's a time to slug. There's time to hit, time to slug, the old Brant Brown saying. That's a time to slug for him, and boom, hits the home run. That's what the Cardinals needed to extend that lead and ultimately take home the win and have a winning home stand. Those are the situations that the Cardinals have not been taking advantage of in recent seasons, and this year, they're coming through, man.
Yeah, they are. And you go to Tuesday's game, 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position when you were shut out against Houston. Typically, when that would happen, I'd be like, oh, okay, they're about to hit that snowball where the offense goes down. Even that Boston Red Sox series where I think you went like for 1 for 11 in one of those games with runners in scoring position. Once it happens, it's like, cool, this offense is going to go into a shell. And then how do you get out of it? And then you just mentioned the point of emphasis for me was yesterday in that spot where Lars Nootbaar hits the home run. Because typically a team in the past has been in that shell with runners in scoring position with 2 on and 1 out, and you'd hit into a double play and this inning's over, and it's like, cool, this team's going to lose 1-0 again. But no, Lars Nootbaar comes up and he smashes that ball. They go 2 for 10 yesterday with runners in scoring position. Is it great? No, but the timely hit is what put you over the top with Houston. And that's something that I have been very skeptical of with this offense. Frankly, I still am skeptical. When we talked earlier this week, I just want to see it longevity-wise. I can't deny what they've been doing in the month of April, though. Like, consistently, they'll have a bad game, and then it's just wiped away the next day, which, to your point with the Blues, one bad game, you forget about that when you go out there and you just dominate the opponent the next game.
Cardinals so far this year batting .270 with runners in scoring position with a .465 slugging percentage. Both of those top 10.
That will play.
That is exactly what you need from your offense. And honestly, that's even more slugging than I would expect from this offense with runners in scoring position. I know the numbers nerds have taken this over and say, hey, average doesn't matter. No, it does in certain situations. With runners in scoring position, batting average absolutely matters because you've got to put the ball in play and you've got to move that runner over. And if you find a way to hit a hard hit single with the guy on second, guess what? That guy's scoring. So that absolutely matters when you have a runner in scoring position, and the Cardinals for far too long have not been a team that comes through in those situations. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We will be talking about the Cardinals throughout the day today, but we've also got to get some talk in on the Blues. Alex, there is some, I don't even know if it's news, but something worth discussing from Blues morning skate today. It's not exactly a positive to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on this. Does this matter? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. A little bit of an update from Blues Morning Skate today, and I don't know how much to read into this. My guess, not too much. Robert Thomas was not available today for TMA, and now he is not at Blues Morning Skate, or at least he's not on the ice, Alex. It has been updated by Jeremy Rutherford that Texier is in Thomas's spot for morning skate with Neighbors and Buchnevich. So my read into this is, okay, they're holding his spot. They just want to get him a day off. Yeah. Really not a whole lot to read into here, but there has been some freak out, as you can imagine, on social media about, oh no, Thomas isn't going to play. Alex, how much should I read into this?
I would say very little. I mean, look, the fact he's not out there is telling that obviously it's something that is nagging him, but even beyond Texier being the placeholder, ask yourself the question, why was Dalibor Dvorsky sent down yesterday if they thought Thomas was not going to be available for game one? Because Springfield doesn't start their postseason until later this weekend or next weekend. So when they sent Dvorsky down, that told me last night, it's like, okay, cool, Thomas is fine. Otherwise, you're going to keep that centerman up here because that's the depth that you would need, and he's the first guy you're going to recall. I would imagine, and we'll find more out from Jim Montgomery, this is more of a, look, he was uncomfortable. We didn't want him to push it. We still don't want him to push it. He had a day off yesterday. He didn't play that third period against Utah. Let's get him the day off, and then we'll see if we can get him on the ice for Friday. My guess is he'll be ready to go for Saturday.
And even if he's not on the ice tomorrow, whatever, it's Robert Thomas. He's fine. Like, he's going to be all right. He'll be ready to go by the time that you get out there on Saturday. And I don't mean that of like, he's the toughest guy in the world. He will find a way to play. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, like, he's going to be all right if he doesn't skate for 3 days.
This is the playoffs, too. Like, this is what happens. And that's the other thing I've seen a lot of people say, like, fine, even if he's fine, he's not going to be at 100%. Dude, nobody on this team right now is at 100%.
No wonder why we're scuffling,
They just went on a 12-game win streak and played like 30-something games in 45 days. Does that math check out?
That's better.
That checks out a little bit better. But regardless, I'm not panicking. Look, it's concerning that he's not on the ice, but I think he's going to be fine.
My guess, he's probably getting some kind of treatment.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably, and I'm not saying like they're taping up his leg and putting on an air cast on it or something like that. But, you know, these guys, while they have morning skate going on, trainers are available, and he goes in there and gets, whether it's stem treatment or whatever, like, these guys go through stuff like this routinely. So he wasn't available today to go on TMA. Some of that was probably treatment as well, getting it checked out. Hey, where am I at? Am I good? Can I go skate today? Yeah. And they say to him, probably better off if you go ahead and take today off. We'll see. We'll come back tomorrow, see where you're at then. It's a maintenance thing. And is he going to be at 100% for Saturday? My guess is probably no. As Alex said, a lot of these guys are not at 100% right now. So I'm not overly concerned. It is something worth monitoring, though.
Yeah.
Because he did not play in the third period. He's not on the ice today. We'll see if he's able to get out there tomorrow for them. And then you go up against a really tough Winnipeg opponent, and you really need Robert Thomas to be at something approaching full strength by the time you get to Saturday's game. If he's not, it does hinder your chances, but yeah, I'm not overly concerned. I'd say a 3 out of 10 so far.
Yeah, again, I looked at the line combinations and saw Texier skating, because if there was concern...
to me, it's not about that.
I have no concern of him not playing.
I'm more concerned about how close is he to 100%, sure. And that is something that we're not going to know till they play. But it also will be telling, like, if they skate tomorrow, for example, and I don't know if they are or not, but if they do skate tomorrow and then he's back on the ice, it just tells me, okay, he's closer to 100%. He was probably at 90 doing the whole treatment thing. But if he doesn't skate until they play on Saturday, and then you see that game on Saturday and you look at it and go, oh, man, you can kind of tell he's doing something.
I was about to say, Saturday will be the day that I think you can determine.
That's when I'll go,
I don't think tomorrow really does anything.
Yeah, I don't think the skating in practice is going to matter. It's going to be, what does he look like in his game? But here's the thing with Robert Thomas. He's not built on speed. He is already a slower guy. What does he look like in terms of navigating in the offensive zone? Can he still make his cuts normal like he typically does? Can he back check like he normally does? Again, none of these guys are at 100%. You ask anybody in there, they would tell you, it's like, yeah, if this was the middle of the season, I'd be missing a couple of games.
All right, so that's, and I don't even know, that's somebody that's hurt for the Blues. Not necessarily injured, but hurt right now. Guy that's injured is Dylan Holloway. Alex, there was a piece that was put up earlier today over on The Athletic. Jeremy Rutherford did a getting to know the enemy, right, with the Winnipeg Jets beat writer Murat Ates, who joined us a couple of weeks ago as well. And I did find it interesting. The Blues are not the only team that's dealing with injury right now. They've got some big ones over on Winnipeg. What did we learn? What kind of insight did we get from the Jets beat writer?
Yeah, so Murat Tess pointed out that, first of all, Nikolai Ehlers, who was playing in their second to last game of the season, and he got injured. I think he ran into the official, and he had to be helped off of the ice. Murat basically said Ehlers isn't expected to play in this first round because of this. He's week to week with this lower body injury, kind of similar to what Dylan Holloway is. And then the other one that I didn't realize is Gabe Vilardi. Now, he's been out for some time. He's considered day-to-day. Murat said that Vilardi has been skating with the team, but he's been doing it before they do a full practice. He has not done any contact. And typically, if you haven't done contact, you're still about 3 or 4 practices away from actually getting that contact. My guess is you're not going to see him, and Murat even said doesn't expect him for game 1, possibly not in game 2. And that's massive because they still have a really good depth team. They're still very good on their back end and have one of the best goalies in the league. But, man, not having Ehlers and not having Vilardi, that's your top 2 lines. And you're taking the goal scorers, with the exception of Kyle Connor, off of those top 2 lines. And the thing that Murat pointed out was they're going to be struggling to find ways to get offense without those 2 players, which means it's going to have to be a grittier type of game, and that plays into the Blues' favor, I would say.
And especially on the power play.
Yeah.
Right? Like Gabe Vilardi on the season has 12 power play goals, 25 power play points.
That's 2 on your number 1 unit.
That is one of their best power play players. He also has 27 goals on the season overall. So he's just a big-time goal scorer for them. And with Ehlers, that is a guy that is a big distributor for them on the power play. He's also a bit of a goal scorer, but more of a distributor for them. And then at 5-on-5, he's one of their drivers for the offense as well. He's one of their, I think they have 4 20-plus goal scorers this year. That's 2 of them.
Yeah.
If both of them are unable to play early in this series, this is what I was talking about yesterday, Alex. If the Blues are able to steal game 1, maybe it's Vilardi is out for 1 game, and it's just that first game. And he ends up being able to come back for game number 2 because they lost and they push him, right? Now the tide starts to turn towards the Blues. The pressure starts to go toward the Winnipeg Jets more and more. And now you're still without potentially Ehlers. You've got Vilardi coming back, but he's nowhere close to 100% potentially in that game. So you're without one of your top 4 goal scorers going into game number 2. You're already down 1-0 in the series. Your goalie is potentially feeling all of the pressure in the world, and Vilardi's not at 100%. That is the formula. That's what it needs to look like for the Blues. We've talked a lot about Dylan Holloway and his presence and what it means for him to be out for this series. It means a whole hell of a lot if Vilardi and Ehlers are not going to be able to come back. I just assumed Vilardi would be back for this series based on the fact that he has been skating a bit leading into the playoffs. If he's out, dude, that's a huge loss for them.
I mean, that's the equivalent of not having a Pavel Buchnevich and Dylan Holloway in your lineup. Sure. Because both are, I mean, Vilardi is a part of that top line that has been one of their best offensive lines, and Ehlers is a part of that second line that has created scoring, but also has been really good defensively. Your power play takes a threat. Your penalty kill takes a threat because Ehlers plays on that penalty kill, and you're looking for new chemistry. So I think without those 2, at least in the first 2 games, this isn't going to be the threat of Winnipeg blowing you out of the water. This is going to be a tight hockey game. It's going to be 2-1, 3-2, 1-goal type performances. And man, if they don't have those guys, I'm not saying the Blues have the upper hand because look, they're still without Holloway, and depending on what this Thomas thing looks like. But having Jimmy Snuggerud potentially having some chemistry with Chen and Kyrou and the ability to roll 4 lines, that's something you might have an advantage with now that Winnipeg doesn't have those 2 players.
Yeah, it changes for me a little bit of what I said yesterday, where I said 65-35 in favor of Winnipeg. That is if they're at full strength. And I just kind of assumed that they would be. I assumed that they would get some of these guys back from the injuries. Obviously, I might have been mistaken on that. And if they are going to be without Vilardi for multiple games, certainly, but especially if they're without him for the game 1, and if they're going to be without Ehlers potentially for the series, that changes things, man, and it becomes closer to a 50-50 series in that regard. I do think that the Blues are still slightly underdogs heading into this series, but man, those 2 guys are massive pieces. You mentioned it. It would be as if the Blues are missing Holloway and Buchnevich going into this series. Yeah. That's probably the closest comparison.
And they're always going to be underdogs in this series. Like, nothing is going to change that at all. But you find ways to level the playing field, and this does that. Like, without Holloway, them not having Nikolai Ehlers, I looked at it as, okay, well, now you're on level playing field because they don't have their depth of scoring like you don't have your depth of scoring. And then once you found out about Vilardi, it's thinking, okay, That's two guys offensively. That means their power play. And by the way, the power play has been a lethal weapon for them when they played against the Blues in the regular season.
It still could be because they've got Kyle Connor, and that's the guy that crushes you.
Very true. But the penalty kill has also fixed some of their demons from earlier this season. But if their power play's not as effective, and they're going to be putting guys like Alex Iafallo and Nemesnikov moving into their top six rather than those are third and fourth line players, again, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, yeah, Blues in 5 now. I still think the Blues have a real shot at winning this series. It's a lot more of a level playing field when those guys are injured, just like your guys are injured.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We've got questions and answers in about 15 minutes or so, but coming up next, feels like we're reaching a tipping point with the college football transfer portal. Do want to give the latest update on Nico, the quarterback from Tennessee, who has unofficially, we're not really sure at this point, made his decision on where he will be playing next season and why he says, or at least his family says, he chose to go there. We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. Another 5-star review from what Rhino Shield's work has done. And Darren sent me the pictures of this house that he did some work on. And the 5-star review said they made our 53-year-old building look brand new again. Worth every penny. The staff is top notch. They have fantastic customer service and an incredible work ethic. And this is what they do. They change the outlook. They give the exterior of your home, your business, the facelift that it needs. And I can speak highly of this because I did it with my home. We moved in 2020. The house did look very old compared to some of the other houses on the block. I was going to paint it myself, and I'm so glad I didn't because I called Darren, and he explained the whole process. Rhino Shield uses a ceramic coating, which is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint, and it's 100% waterproof, the product that Rhino Shield uses, plus it deflects 90% of the UV rays. All of that is backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. So what that means, no matter the weather elements that are coming at your home, it's going to be able to withstand that and look brand new through it all. And mine still does 5 years after their work. So give Darren a call today. Schedule online. Just tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
Tanner Hendricks Near They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues will take on the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Game 1 will be on Saturday, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 4 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 5 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And yesterday, the Cardinals took down the Houston Astros 4-1 as they take 2 of 3 from Houston, and tonight they start a 4-game set with the New York Mets in New York, as Andre Palante will get the start for St. Louis, and then Griffin Canning will be on the mound for the Mets. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. College football has been under the microscope in recent days as Tennessee's quarterback held out of spring practice, said he wanted $4 million, and Tennessee said, go chase yourself. No, we're not interested in giving you that kind of money. And if I'm Nico, the quarterback at Tennessee, I kind of understand it to a degree, Alex. He sees these guys that he views as being lesser quarterbacks than him, making more money than him elsewhere, specifically Carson Beck. Carson Beck, quarterback previously at Georgia, left Georgia to go play for Miami. And the reported numbers out there, I don't know how accurate all of these are, but they're out there, and so it is what it is. Roughly, allegedly, $4 million is what Carson Beck is apparently making down there at Miami. So if you're Nico and you look over, you say, okay, well, last year I was every bit as good as Carson Beck. Why can't I get $4 million? Do I have to move to be able to get that same money that Carson Beck just got? The answer is apparently yes. Or just not get it at all. So Nico goes to Tennessee, tries to start a negotiation, and Tennessee says, we're not interested in negotiating with you. So he leaves. He decides to enter the transfer portal.
What a world, man. Freshman in college is like, I'm going to go negotiate my new contract.
And if it would have worked out for him, hey, more power to you, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Well, Colin Cowherd, who has a bunch of sources in LA market, at UCLA and at USC, said that Nico is expected to go to UCLA. The family told Colin Cowherd, quote, it's not about the money, it's about the Tennessee offense. He was told that he was not told what the Bruins are paying in order to bring Nico along. Some other expectations out there, reports out there, suggests closer to like $1.5 million, maybe $2 million for Nico. He got like half of what he was asking for from Tennessee. Alex, I don't believe him at all on the he left because of the offense thing, but I do understand to a degree why you would want to leave because of Tennessee's offense if you're Nico. And the reason why is because he probably sees himself as a legit NFL prospect. And anytime that we get to this time of the year, what is being held right now against some of the quarterbacks, or more notably, the wide receivers in this class? Specifically, you go to Luther Burden. Oh, well, he doesn't run an NFL route tree. That's why he's potentially part of why he's going to be potentially a second-round pick this year. You think back to some of the quarterbacks in recent seasons, especially the guys that have come out of Tennessee. Dude, that's a Mickey Mouse offense. They don't run real routes. They read half of the field and then immediately get the ball out. It's manufactured offense. Nothing about this translates to the next level. So if you're Nico and you're like, well, I want to be an NFL prospect. I want to be a top 10 pick. How do I get to there? Well, you probably have to play in a different offense. And this was used against Drew Lock when he was at Mizzou. He played under Josh Heupel, the offense that is now being run at Tennessee. He got his evaluation from the NFL, and they said, hey, this is not an offense that we can really evaluate you in. Derek Dooley became the offensive coordinator at Mizzou, and it was more pro-style stuff. He ended up going second round, but that was a boost for him compared to what the evaluation was the year prior because it was more NFL-centric. I say all of that to say this, Alex. I kind of understand it from Nico's perspective to a degree. I do think Tennessee messed up a little bit here, if I'm just being totally honest with you. They lost their quarterback, and you better have a good backup plan here. Otherwise, you're the one that's bleeped.
Yeah.
What did you make of this situation and what it means, not just for Nico, but really bigger picture-wise in college football?
I think the bigger picture is the part that strikes me because, I mean, the situation here, like on one hand, I get Tennessee being like, no, we're not going to pay you $4 million. But then on the flip side of it, if you need to go find yourself a quarterback in the portal, how much are you going to be paying for that when you're competing against other teams? So I don't know the landscape and the dollar comparison in that front, but big picture, I think Nico is setting a trend for a lot of other quarterbacks, specifically in college football. because now there's going to be other athletic programs, football specifically, that have players coming to them being like, look, I want more money, because it's going to be just like in professional sports, right? When a player is going to be a free agent, what does their agent do? They compare him to other guys that signed contracts, and they say, well, our guy is better than B, C, D, and E, so you give him this amount of money. And if they say no, well, what do? They go to the free agent market and they say, well, somebody's going to pay me.
There's a key difference here, though, and this is what makes it really difficult if you're a program trying to build something, is not knowing year to year what your salaries are going to be. In the NFL, you got stuff locked in, right? In Major League Baseball, it's locked in. In the NHL, it's locked in, and you can't get out of that contract until it's negotiation time. In the NHL, that's 1 year remaining on your deal. In the NFL, typically, it's about the same. In college football, it's every year. Every player is a free agent every single season. And this goes to both sides, by the way. I don't want people to think this is just the players that are negotiating up. Dude, teams are also asking some of these players that come in, especially as freshmen, that don't live up to the billing, to take less. That is also happening on the other side.
That's why you see them go to the portal. Because when the team comes to them and says, we need you to take less money because we want to go out there and spend it elsewhere, they're like, well, bleep that. I'm going to go to another team.
Might be happening at Mizzou. Might be happening at times at Illinois. We'll see.
Oh, never. We're family. Never.
Yeah, those guys are family.
I think sometimes when guys come in as high school athletes that make close to $1 million and they don't show much at all in their first year and they end up going to the transfer portal, you might ask yourself, why did that happen?
Asking myself, why are we being so specific right now with a couple of different programs?
Was there a 5-star defensive end that maybe entered the portal for the Tigers
why did that happen?
Season?
This is an award-winning insider for the Mizzou Tigers over here.
I just think sometimes when you see this stuff take place, like, there's reasons behind it, right? It's not just coming from one side, but it's hard, dude. If you're a coach right now, you are a coach, a recruiter, a general manager. Like, there are 10 different things that are pulling you in different directions, and you do have a cap, and you have to play within that cap because you only have so much money at most of these programs, not named Texas A&M, basically. And you have to decide, where am I spending this money? And if a guy, this is where I do really feel for Tennessee as a program. If a guy comes to you last minute at the end of spring and says, I need $2 million more than what I was previously making, dude, that really changes the way that you're able to game plan for what your spring portal decisions are going to be or what your roster is going to look like going into the summer. So you might have to say no. You might literally not have that money available to you, so it's tough.
And this is why you're seeing a lot of programs bring in general managers.
Absolutely.
It's why, wasn't there a report that Mizzou's going to be doing this for the basketball program?
Correct.
So, like, this is, and I don't even know how much the general manager is doing rather than just keeping track of where all the money is at and knowing what's going to take place for next year and how you have it. But, yeah, I mean, the coaches aren't just doing one thing anymore. Now they're doing about 17 different things, and they're going to have to add more people to the staff, which is going to put more money into the pocketbooks. And then how are we going to spend that money? And then the donors start coming in.
Yeah, to your point on, like, hey, this isn't just a player thing, and I can get how coaches get to this conclusion of, hey, man, it's finally time for us to kind of cut bait. Like, let's look at the Nico situation, right? Like, when you first see that and you look at Nico's numbers as a true freshman that started 12 games for Tennessee football last year, you go, why would you let that guy get away? That's a freshman that's only going to get better. Well, then when you take a look, he wasn't very good in conference. So you can see how Tennessee can say, dude, we're not going to pay more. We don't know if there is a next step to your game. And maybe it is true Nico wanted to play more of a pro-style offense. I think that's a bunch of hodgepodge. But I can understand how coaches get to that point because they do have to operate as GMs now, essentially. And when you're a GM, you're not just worried about, hey, here's what he did last season. You have to take deeper dives into the numbers. You have to be able to look ahead, look forward, say, okay, well, here's what we need to do for the program in a year, 2 years. Here's what this guy's value actually is, even if he doesn't believe that that is his value. And sure, there are teams that will be desperate enough to overpay for guys. And I'm not saying Nico's going to be an overpay whenever we find out, if we find out what the number will be on his NIL money from UCLA. Well, you know why UCLA would probably give him $4 million if that's what he's asking for? They were terrible last year. They didn't have a quarterback. So, yeah, of course a program with that kind of history will be able to overpay. And if you're Tennessee, you can look at it and say, okay, well, maybe we believe in a guy that we have on our roster. Or you know what? We can go get a true freshman and maybe get a little bit less money on him to go play quarterback for us.
Yeah. I just don't know how you build a program anymore.
I don't think you can. Do you remember our conversation? It's a different sport. You remember the conversation we had with Jeremy Werner at March Madness? And he said, hey, we asked him about the Illinois basketball season. He was saying, like, well, you know, it's kind of this transition year, and Underwood still thinks he's building a program, and he thinks he'll be there in 2 or 3 years. I don't know how you could ever think that way anymore. I just don't know if you can really, truly build, whether it be basketball or football, say, hey, in 4 years, this is what our program's really going to look like, when everything is just a year-by-year basis for everybody.
It's difficult. And it makes you rethink, like, how do we build the program in terms of who we're recruiting, right? On the basketball side of things, does it make sense to recruit freshmen anymore? Like, does it? I'm genuinely asking. I don't know the answer to that question.
I've seen teams build successul programs just with transfer portal players.
Yeah, it is volatile, though, because if you miss, you end up with what Mizzou was 2 years ago, where you have a team that goes over in conference play. You'll have 1 year where you're great, and then the next year you miss on a couple of guys, and oh boy, we're the worst team in the league. Whereas previously it was this slow build, and you can go from, maybe you were worst in the league to you see these guys continue to grow and develop over the years. Mizzou last year had one of the best recruiting classes in the country, freshman recruiting classes on the basketball side of things. They had 5 players in that class. 2 of them have already left. And 3 of them actually have already left, I believe. That's what you have to expect if you're a coach. If I bring in 5 guys, I expect by year 2, at least 2 of them are gone. And by year 3, potentially 4 of them are gone. So what's the value of recruiting those guys? Because freshmen typically stink. They're normally bad in college basketball. And on the football side of things, like, it worked out for Mizzou with Luther Burden. His NIL stuff was a little different than what you're seeing now. His was actually NIL the way that it was intended to be. Like, he was basically advertising for places. Like, he would do a bunch of stuff, and he had like the chips, and he had a bunch of different things. That's not what's happening now. Now it's just a direct payment from the school to the players. And so what you're seeing is some of these guys, and this is more of what happened with Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers went to Ohio State straight out of high school. He reclassified, went to Ohio State, got a year of NIL there. Boom, went back to Texas, spent the rest of his time there. That's what a lot of these guys are doing now is they go get a big paycheck in year 1, decide if they like it or not, and then they ultimately take their talents elsewhere. So I don't know, man. I don't know how you handle that if you're a head coach. Do you continue to recruit these 5-star kids, or do you recruit them a little bit coming out of high school, maintain that relationship, and then if they decide to leave after a year or 2 of them being wherever they were previously, now we're going to go really try to recruit them? I don't know. Is it cheaper to go the high school route? Because once you get them on campus, if they do end up becoming the player that you hope that they are, they stay for a cheaper price than if you're competing against 100 other teams in college football? Probably, maybe. But over the long haul, are you more likely to miss on those guys? And does it end up actually costing you more money because of the number of players that you missed on than if you just filled that hole via the transfer portal? I don't know, man. These are the kinds of conversations that I'm sure are happening within the coaching ranks right now at the college level. It completely changes the landscape, and there has to be some guardrails that are implemented. I am all for these players getting paid. I have been for years. Right now, it's the Wild West, though. And Alex, it goes back to what you said at the very beginning, how it is similar to what the professional model is, where these guys are comparing themselves to other players and trying to get that paycheck. Sure, can we have some kind of a contract in place? And how do we get there? If we do want that to be the ultimate goal of where we're going, because right now it's a year-to-year thing, how do you get to that place? Because you have to collectively bargain. And if you're collectively bargaining, who are the 2 sides?
Yeah.
Sure, it's the players, but which players? Is it just the Big Ten and the SEC? Is it the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and ACC? Is it? Do you include the group of 5? How does this work? And then, who are you collectively bargaining with? Is it the NCAA or is it the conferences? And if it's the conferences, do they all have a different say in this? And are you really bargaining with 5 different entities? It's tough, man. I don't know how you fix this.
We go back to the days of the student athletes. Student first.
Never existed, but
student first.
It never existed. Hey, we're talking about Tennessee. They were putting money in McDonald's bags.
And they weren't alone. They were just stupid enough to get caught.
It was the good old days, though, right? Under the table stuff. It worked.
It didn't. It
Well,
really
it
didn't.
did. It just.
It actually cost really good coaches their job.
Yeah.
Which nowadays, like,
No,
you
but
wouldn't
the
even.
window was fun.
Dude, Will
you know?
Wade is like, finally. He goes to McNeese, gets a good team. He's like, all right, boys, you're coming with me.
Yeah, let's go.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. But first, I do want to give an update from Blues Skate. We mentioned earlier today that Robert Thomas was not available today for morning skate. They had Texier skating in his spot. Jim Montgomery has updated the media, said Robert Thomas expected to practice tomorrow.
Yeah. Everybody take a breath.
Collective exhale for everybody here in St.
Just
Louis.
like we said. First of all, the first tell was Texier playing in the top center spot because 100%. If they were concerned at the injury, you would have seen line juggling. Second tell was last night when Dalibor Dvorsky was sent down.
All right. Now let's get to some of these questions. From the 636, Alex, in your opinion, which first-round matchup is more unfair due to the NHL's playoff format? The Avs versus the Stars or the Panthers versus the Lightning?
Oh. Yeah, Panthers versus the Lightning probably would be the one that's more unfair. Dallas versus... So, like, if you go 1 through 8, like, if you were to reschedule that, Dallas would be playing Edmonton and LA would be playing Colorado, and then they would reseed. So you might not even still see those teams go head-to-head in the second round. Tampa versus Florida, that one would be Carolina versus Florida. So they're probably similar. I think we're getting robbed of a second or third round matchup of Colorado and Dallas. So the fact they're playing in the first round is a little unfair, but I could say the same thing about Tampa and Florida.
Yeah, I would go Tampa versus Florida for me. I think they're two of the favorites to come out of the East, and they're playing each other in the first round.
Yeah.
All right, from the 636, guys, what's your panic level for Mizzou basketball at the moment? Roster concerns plus CY leaving. The CY thing, I think, makes a lot of sense. He's from Miami. I think at this point in his career, he probably acknowledges, I'm not going to get another opportunity to be a head coach, get a bump in pay, go live in your hometown, coaching on a team that you grew up with. Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world for him to go there. Does it suck? Absolutely. But this is life as a college coach. You're always going to have a rotating cast of characters as your assistant, so that one doesn't really leave me too concerned. The roster, man, it's really interesting because Mizzou basketball is like the anti-college basketball right now. They didn't lose a lot to the college transfer portal. I mean, they lost like 2 or 3 young freshman guys that you didn't really know how they were going to fit into your plans for next season. I think they upgraded at the big man spot from where they were a year ago. But you're losing Tamar Bates and you're losing, why am I blanking on his name right? Caleb Grill. And I don't know how you replace those guys. So a lot of it's going to have to come internally from improvements, players that were already on your team. Hard to say. It really just depends on how high are you on some of their young guys that they had from a year ago. If you're high on them, feel good about it. If you're not, I understand any kind of level of panic. So to give my answer, scale of 1 to 10, panic level for Mizzou at the moment, 4. Everybody else in the SEC is losing a ton as well. You're losing less than basically everybody else. So that's where we're at. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. A couple more of these here for questions and answers. Alex, did you see the deal that Pionk just signed?
Pionk!
What'd you make of it?
Don't really have any takes on it, to be honest with you. He's a second-pair defenseman, and he's getting $7 million, and he's 29 years old. Like, that to me screams we just don't want to lose the guy, and I think that's what second-pair defensemen are going to be going for moving forward. Because I think the top-pair guys, the guys that are fringe top-pair, they're going to be getting somewhere between $8 and $9.5 million per year. So
this Broberg deal.
I think Broberg's more than this.
That's why 8 to 9 is what you're talking about now for Broberg.
Yeah, and who was the guy that signed the contract extension? Who was it that about a month ago when I said, like, there's what the contract extension is? I completely am blanking on it. But he signed like a 9 mil AAV, and I said it's probably going to be somewhere to that if he goes long term. If he goes short term, it's probably not going to be. But if I'm the Blues, I'm not going short term with Broberg. Lock him up now.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Last one here. Guys, do you see eventually the power conferences merging into an independent league of their own for basketball and football, or do you see them going in a different direction? How does this get solved? I think eventually it's probably got to be the Power 4 merging into their own, and I don't know if it's the Power 4 or if it's just the Big Ten and the SEC. That's something that I'm still unclear on as to what the future holds for those conferences, but I don't think the group of 5 will be able to play at the same level. Now, that doesn't mean that the college football playoff has to exclude them. They could still be included in the college football playoff. But for some of this stuff that we're talking about, NIL related, dude, they're not on the same playing field. A team like Boise is not playing at the same level NIL waters-wise as Alabama, Georgia, even Mizzou. So, yeah, I think eventually you are going to have to cut out some of those teams when you negotiate what these rules are going to look like. And then at the group of 5 level, they could do the same thing. What is our landscape for NIL? How are we going to put this thing together? It sucks, but I think you're going to have multiple levels that have different rules.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be the Power 4 that will mold together. I think they will try and incorporate the Big 12 and the ACC. Or if not, maybe they'll just pick apart a couple of those teams like Clemson and Florida State. Like, you're not fooling anybody. They've been trying to leave the ACC. Sure. Miami, Florida's been trying to do the same thing. Big 12, I don't know if there's anybody else worth really picking from there. I think they already got the Big 2 from them in Texas, Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, that's the path we're going towards. Now, I don't know what that means. Are you going to have like 3 different levels of college football with your Power 2 or Power 4 conferences, your group of 5, and then the FCS? Like, I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah. All right, we do have a little bit of news to release for you guys. I know many of you have been waiting.
Holloway's back.
When will the Blues play? We know who they will play. When will they be playing? We have the schedule for you. Saturday, Game 1 at 5 o'clock. That was mostly known yesterday.
Yes.
Our guy Frank Saravali released that last night.
Of course, just ruining breaking news.
Game 2. Monday, April 21st at 6:30.
Yes!
Another early start for our guy Alex. I know that's really what you're looking forward to here.
God, I love the Central Division.
Game 3, the first game that will be played at home for the St. Louis Blues against the Winnipeg Jets. There are some scheduling conflicts that they were trying to work around here. When's it going to be played, Alex? When's it going to be played? Thursday at 8:30.
Oh, you gotta be bleeping kidding me!
Thursday at 8:30, next Thursday, a week from today, will be Game 3 between the Blues and the Jets, and then Game 4 is scheduled for next Sunday at 12 o'clock at noon. So those are the first 4 games. If you'd like to check that out, you can do so on our Twitter account. It has been released over there. The Blues schedule for the playoffs is out for the first 4 games. Game 5 through 7, as necessary, will be released as we go along. So that is the latest as it pertains to the St. Louis Blues. If you missed it earlier, Robert Thomas expected to skate tomorrow as well. Those are all of your Blues updates. We'll talk more about the Blues with our friend Mike McKenna when he joins us next here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He's been joining us all season long as we've gone through this roller coaster of a Blues season with him here on BK and Ferrario. Now the Blues are in. They know who their first-round matchup is for the playoffs. They'll be going up against the Winnipeg Jets. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. What was it like for you over the last week or so to watch this team finally clinch a playoff spot?
Super exciting. BK Ferrario, good to hear from you fellas today. I think watching the game the other night, it was pretty apparent that they weren't losing. They skated out with such a purpose against Utah that there was no question what was going to happen. And I had that feeling all day long. People ask me a lot, like, are they going to win tonight? What do you think? And I'm never a person who's liked to make bets, and I've never liked to make predictions, but just had a feeling about it, and you could really see it with the club. They were not going to be denied, and it's a really good sign. Some of the that improvement and the cohesiveness we've seen, even with Dylan Holloway out, it's really exciting.
That was the part for me, Mike, that really stuck out. It wasn't just that they won the game, it's how they won it. Because for 3 straight, it looked like the offense was gone without Dylan Holloway. It looked like that the team couldn't find ways to generate any offensive zone time. And yes, it was a Utah team that was out of the playoffs, but it was also a Utah team that was playing some really good hockey, and the Blues just went out there and dominated.
Yeah, Utah had kind of been on a spoiler run there, and it's something that can happen once a team realizes that they're probably not making it. And then pretty inspired player, too, right? Whenever Clayton Keller comes back to his hometown, he wants to put on a show, and he did. He scored. Hey, he was the highlight for Utah Hockey Club, which, like, in my eyes, I always look for that storyline. I'm really happy that Clayton Keller scored in his hometown, but I'm also happy that the Blues clinched up and made this happen. So I think for them, the emergence of Snuggerud being more and more comfortable, his teammates knowing what to expect from him, the fact that the Blues really are largely healthy, it shows that they can shrug off at this point a couple of maybe down games. The only down, they went to OT. They lose by a goal. All of a sudden, they're struggling. Oh, man, just because they lost a couple, they weren't struggling. Like, they weren't getting crushed. They just didn't win a couple. So I still feel really bullish on the team.
Mike, the Blues will be the first playoff game this year. They'll be going up against the Winnipeg Jets. They will kick things off for the NHL's playoffs this year. Now that we know it is locked in, it's the Blues versus the Jets, we can talk about the specific matchup. How do you feel about that? How do the Blues match up?
I don't mind it for a second. I understand that Winnipeg's been the top team in the league. You got Connor Hellebuck leading every conceivable goaltending category out there, 2 goals against average. He set the bar at the second most wins in a season this year at 47 in NHL history. That's amazing. But it's something you always hear is Hellebuck going to be tired for playoffs? And he's got a rap of not being as good in playoffs. I tend to think his team has not helped him a whole lot. I don't think it's as much on him. The big thing for me is that there's 2 areas the Blues have to win against Winnipeg if they're going to get past them. They have to slow Winnipeg down through the neutral zone. They've got some mobile defensemen that can move the puck pretty well. You got Morrissey and Pionk who are really good at it. They've got some Tufte and Shen and DeMello. And I think for the Blues, they're really just going to have to be shutting down a guy like Kyle Connor down the middle of the ice. The guy's magic with the puck, 40 goals every year. And then when they get to the front of the net, own that space. The Blues have to own that space. Winnipeg has greasy players. Alex Iafallo, one of the most underrated players in the league, a Swiss Army knife. Adam Lowry's going to be a thorn in the Blues side. Brandon Tanev can skate. So the Blues have to clog up the middle of the ice. They got to be tough in front of their net.
We're talking to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie here on 101 ESPN. Mike, you mentioned the goalie situation between these 2 teams. I am curious. We just got the schedule released about 5 minutes ago from the NHL. The Blues will play game 1 on Saturday, game 2 on Monday, and then there will be 2 days off. Tuesday and Wednesday, full days off for both teams as they travel back here. The series will move to St. Louis. Play again on Thursday and then again on Sunday with 2 games potentially off before Game 5 as well, where the team goes back to Winnipeg potentially for that Wednesday game. So 2 games off for either of the 2 travel opportunities. How much, if at all, does that impact a series like this when you have potentially multiple days off worth of rest?
Well, in my eyes, it's good for the Blues because you got more time to work on Dylan Holloway. And that's a very pinpointed response. But travel days are just brutal on players when it comes to recovery. And you look at the health of the Blues, and it's really just kind of all eyes on Holloway. And frankly, Winnipeg's in that same boat, right? Like Nikolai Ehlers and Gabe Vilardi, they've missed some time. You expect them to be back, but if the Blues can be the healthier team, now you're really looking at a pretty even series on paper in my eyes with the way they played recently. So I think this is more advantage Blues to have a bit of rest. I think it's also advantage Blues to be able to do a bit of more video work and dig down on the intricacies of the team they're playing. Because Winnipeg knows what they're going to see with the Blues. Like the Blues have been no secret to the league for the last 2 months, guys. Like everybody knows they're coming. They know their MO. They know how they play. I think the Blues probably have more to learn about Winnipeg than vice versa in this scenario.
You know, Mike, another sneaky advantage in this series, I would say, not just for the Blues, but maybe the Blues and the Jets, is the travel. You know, there's no time zone changes that they really have to worry about, unlike, you know, if you're playing a West Coast team or if you were playing like Colorado going back and forth. That can be a little bit of a benefit. I know Winnipeg isn't the greatest place to go even in April, but compared to having to worry about multiple time zone changes, that's got to be a luxury as well as a player.
Yeah, Alex, you're right on. I mean, I thought about that with this series that, you know, Winnipeg seems like it's on a different planet just because it's Winnipeg. I mean, nobody's booking a trip there, guys. But it's an easy trip, though. I mean, that flight's actually not very long. You know, you're less than 2 hours door to door on this thing. The hardest part about going to Winnipeg is from the airport to the hotel because they don't even have highways, it feels like. It's all like 2-lane road. But I hate to bag on Winnipeg because it's a really fun place, and I really like that city. It's just not a bustling metropolis. So, yeah, I mean, I think with the Blues, you're not traveling, you're not going great distances, but, again, like, the more rest they have, the more time they have a video work. I think it plays into their favor, even as much as Winnipeg's been rolling.
All right, Mike, my final question for you on this. So we've previewed this matchup a bit. You think it's relatively close, all things considered. The Blues will win this series if blank. Fill in that blank for me.
Kyle Connor scores less than 2 goals in the series. Simple as that.
And how do they shut him down?
Middle of the ice. They absolutely have to be the better team in the neutral zone. They've got to take away his time and space. Kyle Connor isn't as big a threat when you keep him to the outside. And I know I'm putting this on one player. It's really the whole Winnipeg team. But that's kind of where I'm getting at. If the Blues can keep Winnipeg to the outside and keep them from being able to penetrate on the rush and get to middle ice, which the Blues have done really well under Jim Montgomery. They haven't allowed many odd man rushes with Montgomery coaching. Plays into their strength. That's what they have to do. So seal middle ice, keep Kyle Connor off the board. The X factor for me, guys, it's not goaltending, it's not forwards. I think the team that has the better defense in the series, and I mean which team's defensemen really shine, right? If Fowler and Parayko can take this series over, I think the Blues win it all day. That's where I am. I think the Blues have a better D-core than Winnipeg. If they can show it and keep Winnipeg's forwards off the scoreboard sheet, you're going to see the Blues going around too.
Mike, final one from me. How much of an issue do you think Winnipeg's size is going to be for the Blues? Because we've seen the Blues push around a lot of opponents since the Four Nations break. But when they play Winnipeg, they're a big team that does not allow you to get to the middle of the ice.
What's going to really play in is how the third and fourth line for the Blues can make a difference. Robert Thomas's line and Shan, they can get around the bigger players. But where can the Blues wear down or at least match the physicality of Winnipeg? And to me, that WTF line all day long. I mean, Nathan Walker's going to play a critical piece of this in this series. Oscar Sundqvist, who I think has been one of the underrated players on the Blues this season, he's been a critical piece. What can he do? I don't find the size of Winnipeg to be as tough. It's just the physicality. I think that the Blues can match it. I do think there were moments down the stretch where the Blues showed they can play a greasy game and a heavy game when they need to, and they're not going to be intimidated by Winnipeg.
Mike McKenna is a former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week throughout the hockey season here on BK and Ferrario, and he does so on behalf of the great folks over at Macadoodles. Mike, what do you guys have going on right now? I know you were on the Riz show earlier today telling them about some of the opportunities. What's going on at Macadoodles?
Well, you know, we happen to bring in an NHL Hall of Famer, Olympic gold medalist into the boys down the hallway. It's at 105.7 The Point on Hubbard Radio this morning, and guess who it was? It was Ed Belfour. It was the most hated man in St. Louis hockey history, Ed Belfour. Ed Belfour, the goaltender, is coming to Macadoodles today from 6 to 9. And this has got a pro wrestling vibe to it. He's the villain. He's the heel. He's the black hat. And this morning on the Riz Show, he commented about how he loved that. He loved feeding off the vibe. He said to the St. Louis Blues fans, bring it on. Huh. We had Ed Belfour on air going, Belfour himself. So, I mean, fellas, I'm super excited. If you come in to see Ed, it's a free event at Macadoodles, Darden Prairie, corner of Bryan and Feisey Road. If you buy a bottle of his bourbon, he makes his own bourbon, his own whiskey. Buy a bottle, he'll sign a piece of hockey memorabilia as well. We're dog-friendly. We're kid-friendly. Come out and see us. And then on Saturday, we've got an adult Easter egg hunt at 9 a.m., a couple bottles of Eagle Rare, a couple bottles of E.H. Taylor, a couple Blantons, a couple of Fortaleza tequilas, and those things will be available that day at 9 a.m. when we go find those golden eggs. But tonight, it's all eyes on the Eagle. Ed Belfour, ladies and gentlemen, is in the building signing bottles of bourbon. It's hero worship for me, guys. Like I hated this guy and loved him, and I learned so much from him, and it's been awesome being there this morning. I can't wait for tonight.
His hockey clips are still one of my favorites to get a good laugh in the middle of the day, watching him just take his stick out on a crossbar.
Poor Paul Stewart. Then he flung the crippled carcass of that stick right at the ref.
And you know what? Great deacon move by that ref because he got out of the way quick.
You want to know something funny? The guy that scored that goal was Jeff Brown. And Belfour was telling me last night he went to go eat out at Annie Gunn's, and who walks in? Jeff Brown. So they got to caught up. You know, they're catching up, having a laugh, and here was the most emotional moment I've ever seen on the ice caused by these two guys, and all these years later, they're having a giggle about
That's
it.
That's amazing. You love to see it. Mike, we appreciate the time as always, man. Always a good time to be able to catch up with you. We'll talk with you again next week, hopefully as the Blues are up in the series against the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, man. I sure hope so. I think they're going to do it. So talk to you next Friday. Thanks, fellas. Have a good one.
That's Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joining us on behalf of Macadoodles as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario.
I loved Ed Belfour, but I hated Ed Belfour.
A little bit of confidence there from Mike McKenna on this series, Alex.
I don't blame him. I mean, like, I do feel it. I feel good going into the series. It's just going to come down to, I mean, Mike said stopping Kyle Connor, and I'm not even sure if it's just Kyle Connor. To me, it's Connor and Scheifele, because that line has just had their number, and regardless if it was Iafallo or Velarde, but he's right. I've seen the Blues push around other teams that are big. I've seen like that Winnipeg Jets game people go back to, and T-Bone and I were the same way afterwards. We're like, man, I don't want Winnipeg after that game. But you didn't have Parayko in that one. You had just wrapped up a 12-game win streak, which set a franchise record, and you went on the road. Sure. You were coming to the reality of playing without Dylan Holloway, and Joel Hofer was in net. Like, it is just a different level of hockey when you get to the playoffs, and the one thing that Winnipeg has is a lot of doubt on their roster in the postseason. You know what the Blues don't have? Doubt. Because nothing really matters. If they lose, so be it. We weren't supposed to be here. But all you got to do is go win one game. And I was just looking at it because, to Mike's point of the WTF line having an impact, that series in 2019, Oskar Sundqvist had 4 points in 6 games against Winnipeg. That's how you beat them. You beat them with depth of scoring.
Sure.
Your top lines cancel each other out. Special teams, you hope you can be good. You beat them with your best, with your depth of scoring that can go up against them.
Coming up in 15 minutes, when did you know that this team was going to be back into the playoffs? We'll get your answers on that here in about 15 minutes or so. Plus, who does the rest advantage best benefit? We'll talk about that as well. But next, would you consider signing Brendan Donovan to a contract extension sooner rather than later? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. T-Bone's been looking forward to this segment all day long. You know what time it is, Alex. It's time to talk about an extension candidate for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Jeez, of course.
Found our thumbnail.
They're winning, so of course they're going to get an extension.
So, Brendan Donovan, we would all agree, is a good player, right? Can we agree on that?
He's a hell of a three-hole hitter.
He's a good player.
Brendan Donovan is getting to the point in arbitration where you can at least start having the conversation. He's got 2 years remaining of arbitration right now. This year he's making like $2.5 million. That puts him right around $5 next year and probably $8 to $10 million in year 3. So right now, if you're the Cardinals, you're kind of banking on the next 3 years. He's going to get $15 to $20 million. Somewhere in that range is what you're currently expecting. And again, that includes this season at $2.8 million via arbitration is what Brendan Donovan is currently slated to make. Would you consider signing him to an extension? Now, the answer to that is obviously yes. Like for most people, just point blank period, if I just ask you, are you interested in Brendan Donovan being here longer than just the next 2 years? I think everybody would say yes to that. But then there's an obvious follow-up question. Yes, but at what cost? And I think that is a more than fair question to ask. It is the question to ask. And Alex, as I look at this, it's a little difficult to find an obvious comparison for what it would cost to retain his services. There is somebody, though, that to me makes some sense. So Jake Cronenworth was in his second year of arbitration when he signed a contract extension with the San Diego Padres. That happened last year prior to the start of the season. At the time, he was going into his age 30 season. And Jake Cronenworth signed a deal worth 7 years, $80 million is ultimately what he decided to sign with the Padres for. Now, that's a lot of years, and it's probably more years than what the Cardinals would prefer to do. The Padres are doing that thing where they're signing for more years to be able to get the CBT stuff down. I think the Cardinals, if they wanted to do something like this, it's probably more in the 5-year range than the 7-year range to me. And if you were to do that and you use his as the template, I think you're probably talking about like a 5-year, $45 million deal or a 5-year, $50 million deal for Brendan Donovan. Again, right now you have him for about $15 to $20 million, 20 on the high side. This would effectively be adding 2 years, $25 to $30 million on the deal. So you're getting him at about $15 million per year for those final 2 seasons, and his early 30s should be still the prime of his career.
And that's an arbitration.
No, the arbitration stuff you're buying out. Yeah. That would be
the
buying
first
out
2 years of free
agency.
agency. Gotcha.
Alex, T-Bone, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. I don't think this is something the Cardinals will do in season because they're handing things over to Chaim Bloom, and he's the one that ultimately gets to make this decision. But if they did, is this something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I would. Mostly because of what you said in terms of, yes, you're buying out those couple of years and you're paying him a little bit more than what he would be making in terms of arbitration, but it plays itself out to where I'm getting Brendan Donovan at, what was it, $8 million a year? Somewhere around that?
Yeah, somewhere in that
For
range.
5 years, this dude, like you mentioned, on the market, you're probably talking about 15 mil for how he's performing, and we don't know. This guy could continue to push this direction and be MVP conversations. Yeah, I would look at that and be like, sure, I'll lock him up. And it's not so much about get him before he becomes a star or something like that. He may not be. But what he is, he's a winning player. And surrounded with this team for $10 million a year, I could give a winning player $10 million a year who has impacted the lineup, mind you. Defensively, he's impacted in pretty much every position you've put him in. Offensively, he's been a leadoff hitter for you. He's been a double leadoff hitter for you. And now he's a 3-hole hitter for you. So, yeah, I'd pay that guy $10 million a year.
Yeah, that contract extension itself is not that bad. I still wouldn't do it. I look at Brendan Donovan and say, I'm just going to play through the arbitration system with him. And the reason for it is he's a little bit more on the older side. Like his first free agent year will be when he turns 30. 31 will be his first free agent year. Typically, you're starting to see some guys, that's when it starts to go a little bit downhill for them. Like guys that I think profile like him, like you mentioned Cronenworth, which is actually a pretty good comparison for him. Cronenworth, the moment he turned 29 and 30, he's been 5% below league average the last 2 years. You look at a Brandon Nimmo, who I think he kind of profiles as a little bit as well. It's a little different. Donovan more of a utility player than Brandon Nimmo, Brandon Nimmo, age 30 season, 28% above league average. Sign up for that. And then since then, it's starting to fall off a cliff. 7% above league average. This year, off to a bit of a slow start, 5% below league average. We'll see where he ends up finishing. I just don't think I would pay Brendan Donovan. And I've got his replacement internally. Like Thomas Ajacey is going to replace him internally. You got J.J. Weatherholt that's coming up through the system. I don't think you can keep everybody of a Thomas Ajacey, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, like those three spots. I don't think you can keep those three guys. I think you got to choose one of them.
I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. And there's many reasons why. One, I think eventually you have to reward some of these guys. You've got to start deciding, okay, who are the guys we're building around? And I think, to me, Donovan is one of them. I don't know where he's going to play long term. Could he be your second baseman of the future? Absolutely. Could he be your third baseman of the future once they decide what the plan is with Nolan Arenado if he ends up not being here? Sure. I don't know that that's necessarily his best position long term, but he can play it. Can he play in the outfield for you? Yeah. Could he use moonlight at first base or DH? Absolutely.
I was just say, why can't he just be a DH/utility guy?
He could do all of these things. He can do whatever it is that you need. And if there's injuries, guess what? He fills into that slot. He can do anything. And that's part of the value of Brendan Donovan. He's also one of the leaders of the team. Guys, you spend 5 minutes around the Cardinals, and you will hear about the leadership of Brendan Donovan. It was spoken about ad nauseum out at winter warm-up. It continued into spring training. This is one of the leaders of the team. And to me, I just am looking to reward those guys. He's put in the work. He's been unbelievably productive. He does everything you ask of him. He's really good defensively. He adds some value on the bases. Like, there is, to me, very little reason to believe that he is going to be a declining asset over the next 4 years. Now, after that, do you want him to have that 7-year deal that Cronenworth got? No, I would not. I would not want to sign him up into his age 35, 36 season. But into his age 32 or 33, sure, I've got no problem with that at all. And beyond that, dude, it's not like it's a bunch of money. If you determine at any point in time, hey, he's actually a better asset to us via trade than he is to continue to be a part of the club. At any point, you can always make that determination. And I believe a contract extension for Donovan actually makes him more valuable as an asset for other clubs that might be interested in trading for him down the road because he has more control. So if you're a team, whatever market size you are, $10 million, you can always take that on, dude. Mm-hmm. If you're the Royals, the Rays, or the Mets, you can deal with Brendan Donovan at $10 million if the Cardinals ever got to that place, which I'm not sure they would.
The problem has always been, at least for me, over the last 10 years or so, the Cardinals overpaying for areas that they desperately need. And Dexter Fowler's one that comes to mind. Brett Cecil's one that comes to mind. Like, they've always overpaid for stuff that they just couldn't find in their system. Dude, Brendan Donovan, with the exception of the catcher position in center field and pitcher, I think the guy could play in any position you need him to. And his bat plays no matter what. So him being a leader, him being a super utility piece, and for $10 million for 5 years, that takes him until he's 33 years old. You always have an out for an area that maybe you didn't develop through your minor league system, or an area that you expected a guy to be an everyday player for you. Let's say it's Jordan Walker. Let's say it's Thomas Ajacey or a J.J. Weatherholt, and they don't pan out right away. Now I've got Brendan Donovan. Like, that's the guy. That's the secret sauce to keeping a team in a competitive window.
Totally. To me, this is the way that you do it. Like, these kind of contract extensions, I think the Cardinals got themselves into a little bit of trouble by giving out too many of them 3-4 years ago. I think Brendan Donovan is the exact kind of guy that you would want to do this with. I don't think there's anybody else on the roster right now that I would consider this with. Not today. At the end of the season, you could probably convince me if Nootbaar continues playing like this, maybe he's somebody that you consider giving an extension to. If Jordan Walker for the next 2 years continues to be this player, maybe you talk about it with him. I would say at the end of the year, maybe you start talking about it with Mason Wynn. But today, I don't think there's anybody other than Brendan Donovan that I would be comfortable talking extension with, to me. He would be the one guy that I'm comfortable doing it with as of right now.
Yeah, because I can't do it with Lars Nootbaar until I see health for 162, and I'm not going to do it with Walker until I see it.
And I don't do it with pitchers. I just play the arbitration game with pitchers for the most part, and then if you get to the final year or two with them, maybe then you start talking about it. But
what about
Andre
Herrera?
Palante,
I wouldn't.
Ivan, no.
I just don't know where he projects long term. And what I mean by that is
all year long defensively. If you see this all year long defensively from Ivan Herrera, sure.
Even if that bat plays, though? Even if that bat looks like a legit middle of the order bat?
I don't know where it plays
his
for
value,
me.
His value won't be, like, he won't ever, when I think about an extension, like, you worry about, the reason, like, when we talk about extensions for young guys, we're talking about trying to get them on the cheap. You're really looking for surplus value in that contract. I don't know if you're ever going to look at it as surplus value on Ivan Herrera, because if there's no defensive value, it just erases how good some of the bat is, and it kind of pulls them back to the middle.
I disagree with that. I think the bat will play no matter where you play him, but right now you don't have a spot for him elsewhere, so he might end up being a trade chip. I don't love saying that, but it's just the reality. Like, they got to determine what is the future home for Ivan Herrera. How does he fit into your plans? And you can't sign him to a contract extension without knowing the answer to that question. I think he'll have value no matter what, but it's just a matter of where he plays. Somebody on the text line from the 618 said, guys, am I remembering this wrong? I thought there was a time when BK had this exact same spiel with Tyler O'Neill. Very different, but it was a contract extension spiel. With Tyler O'Neill, it was about, if this is who he is, you better sign him now, because it might be $100 million that you have to spend on him. And I don't think that was the wrong thing to say. It just wasn't who he was. Ultimately, the Cardinals were right in waiting with him because he did not continue to be the player that he was in that borderline MVP caliber season. So that's different than this. This is locking in a player that's really solid, and I think you know what you're getting long-term with him, as opposed to O'Neill is, are you buying early on what is ultimately going to be a consistent all-star caliber player? This is like the opposite of that. This is about buying the floor. That was about hoping to retain that ceiling.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't buy the floor on players, just because I think, like, when you look at Brendan Donovan, the Cardinals have shown they can develop that guy, the 10% above league average guy. They can't develop the star, and that's when, like, if Walker does have back-to-back really good seasons, he's the only guy that I would eventually potentially probably look at as a contract extension. There's not a Cardinal on the roster, and this isn't like a shot at any of these guys, because most of the guys on the team are playing really well. There's not a guy on their roster that I would give a contract extension to. I wouldn't pay Mason Wynn a contract extension. I wouldn't give this to Donovan. I would not do Jordan Walker just yet. Lars Nootbaar, even if he does stay healthy this year, I'm not signing him to a contract extension, because I've seen the same effect with Tyler O'Neill, which was, okay, sure, you had one healthy season. Is that sustainable, though? You know, can you be healthy for a full 162 for multiple seasons?
Sure.
Because if not, then we're not getting that contract value, and that's what happened to O'Neill. O'Neill couldn't stay healthy, and that's why he ended up settling for, I think it was 3 years and $50 million with Baltimore.
We're all in agreement on those. Donovan is the one where there is a disagreement on it. And I think you're, to me, T-Bone, I think you're just underselling the value of a player like Brendan Donovan. You mentioned they can produce players like this. They can produce guys that are 10% above league average. I don't think they can replicate what Brendan Donovan brings defensively, offensively, leadership-wise, all of the stuff that he brings to the table. I do think he is the one guy on the team right now that brings all of that stuff to the table. He allows you to have the flexibility within your lineup on a day-to-day basis to play him anywhere in the lineup and anywhere on the field. Nobody else on this roster brings that to the table and produce anywhere that he is.
It's a different player, and none of us mentioned the age in this comparison that I'm going to come up with, which I'm kind of glad about, but it does fall into the category. Would you re-sign Dylan Holloway?
Yes, of course.
Dylan Holloway, to me, is what Brendan Donovan is. Like, he is a dude that you could plug in wherever you need him to. He'll do whatever you want. He's just got that mindset. Now, the difference is 28 versus 23. But, I mean, we're talking about 5 years of Brendan Donovan, and it's not
To
like
me, Donnie's closer comparison is probably Neighbors.
Yeah,
I could get
because
that.
he does all of the dirty work. He can fit anywhere on your team. He's probably more skilled than you think.
I think I went Holloway here, though, because of what we're seeing from Donovan right now, to where it's like, whoa, I didn't expect this to be like this consistent and this
good. And I don't
good.
think that sustains. That's why
And
I
maybe
would
not,
say
but-
it's probably more than Neighbors.
But even
one,
in
either
Neighbors
way.
too, you're going to re-sign Jake Neighbors because he's a heartbeat of the team. I look at those guys, and again, I'm the one that judges this stuff way too much. You can't replace those guys. When you try to, you're searching for a good 5 to 10 years of it.
Like the whole locker room thing, I don't read much into that. I think his profile is good. Where I look at contract extensions differently, because I am much more open to doing them in the NHL than I am in baseball. And the reason for that is most stuff in the NHL kind of sustains for a very long period of time. Dude, there are baseball teams, there are really good players in baseball that have weird ebbs and flows throughout their career. Like, look at Bryce Harper, for example. Bryce Harper's a very good baseball player. He also had some very weird years with the Washington Nationals.
But Donovan
and
hasn't.
that's just, but that's what I'm saying is, like, this is not a continuous linear line of, for now on, Donovan is always going to be this 280 hitter, always going to be a guy that's going to be 10 to 20% above league average. It just goes for these guys. In the NHL, I don't think that happens as often.
I think it does when they get into their 30s.
I think for Donovan, like, to me, I just think this is the type of player that the Cardinals continue to grow on trees that I think they can just replace when they get to that spot. And for the talk of Brendan Donovan, look, not taken away from his rookie year when he was really good, 4-win player, and you can take away 2023. That dude was unbelievable for the fact that he's playing with one arm.
Yeah, he had a bionic arm.
Last year he was really good. He wasn't even a 3-win player according to WAR. And if you
Still
look
really
at
good.
WAR,
That's worth $10 million a year.
yeah, and I wouldn't pay Brendan Donovan that. I would run through the arbitration system with him, then we would move our separate
Coming
ways.
up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, when did you know that this Blues team was going to get back into the playoffs? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendricks here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues in the Stanley Cup playoffs, as in the first round, they will be taking on the Winnipeg Jets as the schedule has been released. You can check out the full schedule on our Twitter page at 101 ESPN. But game one, Saturday, 5 o'clock. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 4 with Alex Ferrario. Then, of course, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale will be on the call. And then the Cardinals start a 4-game set with the New York Mets tonight, as we will see Andre Palante on the mound for St. Louis. Griffin Canning will be on the mound for the Mets. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I wanted to ask you this question because I heard it on the Fast Lane when they were talking with Jim Montgomery yesterday. Yeah. I asked him, hey, when did you know that you had a real chance to be able to make it to the playoffs this year? And he talked about pretty early on in that 12-game winning streak. He felt like they had a real chance to be able to do something special this year. For you, Alex, was there a game? Was there a moment? When did you think, all right, this is going to happen for them?
So I didn't hear the Jim Montgomery interview, so I'm kind of curious. This is kind of like the match game or the newlywed game. I'm going to see if I can match the game. For me, I thought that they could actually make the playoffs that second win against the LA Kings when they won in a shootout. There were two moments out of the Four Nations break that I was like, okay, this team could do damage. The first one was Washington, but it still wasn't sold because, yeah, you won 3 in a row, and it was the first time that you had done that all season. But I'm thinking, all right, but you beat Seattle. Yeah, it was a good win against Colorado and a good win against Washington, but you got to extend this a little bit. And why it was that March 5th game against the LA Kings, it was because that came off of the loss to the Dallas Stars. When they got beat by Dallas, I'm thinking, cool, here's the snowball. What's this team look like? And they played well in that game against the LA Kings. Now, that was without Colton Parayko. Parayko got injured in that game. But that was a game that I thought they played extremely well, and they found a way to push out and hold on to get that win. That moment right there was like, okay, this team is going to be tough to deal with down the stretch.
That was it for me, but then the Parayko injury news came out.
Yeah, we know. We heard the audio from yesterday.
That was the exact moment where, yeah, I'm all in, and then the next day, oh, no, I'm all out. It was a weird 24-hour stretch.
Let me tell you, I didn't end up using the cut of him at the trade deadline. There was some major tone problems on that day.
Did he and I get into a fight?
Oh, he made one comment where I don't care about feelings, okay? They should be looking to move as many people as possible.
You should have used that.
It would have been too long. Like, it would have been
too mean. I get it.
I would have thrown him under the bus. Does it all the time.
I mean, to be fair, like I think that was a more than reasonable opinion to have.
Here's his tone again.
You should care about feelings.
Their number one defenseman, who Alex had said was up in the Norris Trophy consideration, and justifiably so. He was playing that well. He was out, and we didn't know how long it was going to be. It was potentially like 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about what do they do at the deadline, and there were national reports that their captain may have been up for grabs. So, that was where.
And then we got into the fight about Matthew Nyes and went back and forth.
But my point is, that was the day coming off of that LA Kings win where I was all in, and I was like, this team's going to find a way. I can't believe it, but they're going to find a way. And then we immediately got kicked in the teeth with that news with Colton Parayko, and so it altered my perspective on them once again.
Yeah.
And so I think the next time that I really allowed myself to legitimately believe that they were going to do it was probably coming off of that Colorado win. The first one. The first 2-1 out of the victory that they had. No. Like the 2-1 win on the road at Colorado.
Oh, when they snapped their home win streak?
Where they were able to find a way to win that game without any of their defensemen. And they had dudes
and without Holloway in that game.
Blocking all of the shot. I mean, it was crazy the way that they were able to win that game. And at that point, I was like, all right, they're doing this. Yeah. They're going to find a way to pull through.
And see, the other one.
So was a late arrival.
There was another one, too, that guy was like, oh, man, this team is going to be on a run. And it was game 2 of that 12-game win streak, the Anaheim Ducks home game, to where they got delayed in Minnesota. We heard the comment from Monty where it was like, look, this team is seeking out challenges. And they came out and they scored 7 goals on Anaheim. And that was after a back-to-back where they played it an hour earlier. The thing about it is, I never believed even when Jim Montgomery took over, I never believed the Blues could put themselves in this position. I thought they were going to be good with Jim Montgomery. I thought they were going to miss the playoffs like they did last year with Drew Bannister, where you're 4 points out, you just kind of got tired down the stretch, and you took it as a learning experience and started off next year hot and made the playoffs next year. But it wasn't until they got out of that Four Nations break where you started to see the style that they played, and it was like, oh, okay. Because go back and look at the Corsi rating and the heat map on Natural Stat Trick of the first 2 games out of break against Winnipeg and Colorado. They lost in a shootout. They beat Colorado. Dude, Winnipeg and Colorado had no offensive zone time. They had no high-danger scoring chances. That was a moment where it was like, okay, so they just completely changed the outlook of how they are defensively, and then the offense started to pour in. 7 against Seattle, 5 against Washington. You went on the road and scored 4 against the LA Kings. That's when it was like, all right, they're starting to put pieces together, and this is going to be a dangerous squad.
Yeah. There were a bunch of moments like where you had the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And then you needed, everybody had a different point where they felt like they had arrived at, okay, they're going to do this. And for some, it was earlier. And then the next arrival was, oh my God, they're going to get the top wild card spot. I remember doing the fast lane with Marshy coming in one day when I filled in with him. And Marshy was like, I think they're going to do it, man. I think they're going to catch the wild. And
And then he used his tone on him, too.
It's like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And they damn near did it. I mean, they were right there up until like the final day of the regular season for them to potentially be able to catch the Minnesota Wild. So what a run they were able to go on. What a ride this has been.
By the way, can I just say, I know I was the one that said, give me Vegas. Like, I want Vegas in the first round. I'd like to rescind my words on that because have you guys seen the schedule for Vegas and Minnesota?
And this is a personal thing, right?
This
Not
is totally
the
a
Blues
personal
had a better
thing.
shot at one versus the other.
I mean, they still think they probably would have beat Vegas in 6, but this is a personal thing because their first 3 games, a 9 o'clock start, a 10 o'clock start, and an 8 o'clock start. Like, holy bleep, man. Minnesota, everyone's tweeting right now saying Minnesota got hosed on the schedule. Man, I remember the bubble season when Blues, T-Bone remembers, we did that together. Blues got 9:45 puck drops against Vancouver, games 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I was here till like
Absolutely
1:30 in the morning for those
God
games.
bless the
That was
Central
bad.
Division.
I'll never forget that West Coast swing. I filled in for you, Alex. This is a few years ago now. I filled in for you on the pre and post game stuff, and there was like 2 LA Kings game, and I want to say
San Jose,
maybe
wasn't it?
San Jose was the third.
Wasn't I your board up for that too? I think I was with
think
you
it
at one
Grant.
point. I was with
think it
you
was
for
Grant
one.
that I was doing those with because I
It's
had
not
a
too fun,
bad
is it, man?
cold. I had like a
Yeah, I was doing that with
humidifier.
you. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and it's not too fun, man. Those West Coast games, it seems to always play out when they play on the West Coast games. I always get sick around that time.
Yeah. I wonder why. It might have to do with the lack of sleep.
Probably the lack of sleep and the amount of yelling that I do.
All right, coming up in about 10 minutes, how do the Dodgers and Mets lack so much pitching? It doesn't make sense to me. Cardinals are going up against the Mets in a 4-game set coming up here the rest of this weekend. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. But next, the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's dive into the junk drawer. You want to bring up what you were just talking about off air, Alex? Or should we go to
your
the story
food
that I had?
smells like wet dog. That's what we were talking about in the studio. Plus, we were also talking about some other things.
Yep. Songs.
Top 5
music.
bedroom songs for intimacy. Go.
We can go on to this story if you'd like.
No, Boys to Men, I'll Make Love to You, number 1. No better song.
All right, so what's your junk drawer, BK?
I figured T-Bone.
Chicago. We were just talking about
Don't make
another
me turn
great
your
band.
mic off.
I had a salad today.
Yeah, no, you
It's
didn't.
broccoli.
You had a wet dog today. That's
red
what it smells
cabbage,
like.
A little bit of Parmesan cheese.
That sounds disgusting.
It's-
There's onion in there.
He opened
A
it.
little bit of
and
onion.
You guys know in those like Mickey Mouse cartoons when like something bad smells and like this green thing comes out of it and grabs
That
you?
happened?
That's what happened in studio when he opened his food. Got to have more respect for people around you,
Does
man.
look disgusting.
I'll be better. We have a lot going on after the show today, so I had to find a time where I could eat some lunch.
No, do like me. Don't eat until 4 o'clock.
That's my normal move.
I get home and the girls get up from their nap and I'm eating and they're like, Daddy, can I have a snack? And I'm like, no, this is Daddy's lunch. You can
my
have
turn to
dinner.
eat, damn it.
You can have dinner in an hour.
All right, so what we were going to talk about here before we talked about something else, in Canada, they're supposed to have some political debates, Alex, over the next week.
Dude, we should have totally gone with mine.
No, I'm back to
Both of my
Ferrarios.
topics were
All right,
better
I
than
changed
that.
my mind. I want to go back to Ferrarios.
I just wanted to talk about how important hockey is in Canada. They're moving the debates because they want to see Montreal play.
Oh, I get that. Dude, it's not even Montreal. They've got, what, 6 Canadian teams in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, the Montreal game against Carolina on Wednesday at 7 took precedent, so they moved their debate,
Dude,
to accommodate the hockey game.
Honestly, I can't wait to see hockey in Montreal. Like the last time we had hockey playoffs in Montreal, and I know they played in the bubble, but I can't even tell you where they. It's got to be like late 2000s, early 2010s that we saw them in the playoffs last, like with fans in the building. And no joke, guys, they are one of the loudest stadiums.
I remember when the draft was there, it was amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
2020 they had it, 21 they had it, but those were both COVID years.
2015.
Wow, 2016,
Or
17 was the last
2016-17,
time.
the playoffs. Yeah. Man, that's going to be a really fun atmosphere. So, yeah, I don't blame them for moving their debates. Hockey dominates in Canada, specifically Montreal.
All right, before we get to the Dodgers and the Mets lacking pitching, what's the series you're most excited about, Alex, just in this year's playoff?
Probably Tampa and Florida, because Florida's going to be at full strength. That is going to be a juggernaut matchup.
Is it crazy if I say if I say Ottawa versus Toronto?
No, because that was number 2 on my list. And then Colorado and Dallas is probably number 3 on that list. LA and Edmonton's going to be fun because they've met up the last 3 years and Edmonton always wins. And I think LA is going to win that series. I went through it just during that last commercial break. And I think a lot of these are going to be done in 6 or 7 games. But yeah, I think Ottawa can beat Toronto. I think Tampa can beat Florida. And frankly, I think LA will beat Edmonton.
T-Bone, do you have a series you're most looking forward to? Other than Blues versus the Jets?
That's the number
outside
1.
the Florida-Tampa one, I don't know if there's another one that I'm looking at. Because I was just running through some of those in my head. Because I thought Colorado-Dallas would be really good. Well, Dallas has got all kinds of injuries. There's maybe I'm off. Maybe this happens it feels like there's a ton of significant injuries that are really downplaying a lot of these good teams. Edmonton's dealing with a ton of injuries as well.
And I think it was because teams had to play desperation mode down the stretch. They had to force their way through those final few games because Edmonton was in threat of falling out of the top 3 and into a wild card spot if Calgary could have caught them.
It's hard to know if there's any evidence behind this, but I also wonder if the Four Nations had a little bit to do with this.
Yeah,
could absolutely be.
Added a little bit more wear and tear to some of the bodies for some of the
really
top players.
shrunk that schedule down.
Yeah.
That
Especially
we talked about with the Blues.
you'd have to look at the guys that played in that Four Nations tournament versus who's been injured, because I think Ehlers played with Finland, and I mean obviously he's week to week. Now his was a freak injury. It's not like fatigue that set in with it.
Yep. Some of it could be overuse. You end up compensating for something and boom, something else
That's
happens.
why Connor Hellebuck will choke in the playoffs because of overuse.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. That also will not apply, of course, as we know, to Jordan Binnington.
No.
Who played the exact same number of games in that tournament, but it does not apply.
Not in the
Benner.
regular season, though. Connor Hellebuck has played 63 games on top of the Four Nations tournament.
That's crazy, dude.
I don't understand why they don't learn their lesson. You move it down to about 55 games for him. He's still going to be the best goalie. And guess what? Down the stretch, they used him way too much in the second half of the season when they already had the number 1 spot locked up.
Yeah, I do wonder if maybe depending on what happens in this series, it could be a lesson to be learned for them this year. Where this becomes the year where it's like, okay, we can't do that again. It is time for us to change our ways.
And the hard part is, too, when Hellebuck tells you when Grant Fuhr used to tell the Blues, I'm playing every single game, you're not going to tell Grant Fuhr we're sitting you so you can rest. So I'm sure Connor Hellebuck's like, no, I'm playing these games.
It's like a number one starter who wears down during the regular season, and he's like, I'm not coming out of these games in the 6th or 7th inning when I'm shoving, but then he struggles in the playoffs because he's run out of gas.
Were you referring to Kershaw there?
That was the one that I was immediately thinking about.
What a segue.
I was going to say, when you mentioned the Hellebuck thing, you said like 10 fewer games, right? Or 5 fewer games?
What?
Like
But 5 to 10, yeah.
Like if you took away just 5 games from Hellebuck, let's say, just to give him that extra rest. Say you lost all 5 because you don't believe in your goaltender. Guys, the Jets would have had the second best record in the West still.
Yeah.
Like, come on, what are we doing, Winnipeg?
Bennington this season played 56 games. Connor Hellebuck finished with 63 games on top of playing every one of those Four Nations games.
Yeah, get him down to 55. You're feeling pretty good about it. But it might not matter this year. Maybe this is the year where they break through and Hellebuck is great. And we look back on this and laugh because we had questions about whether or not they overused Hellebuck. And the answer was no, that guy's just amazing. And he's in the prime of his career right now. Could go either way. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Believe It or Not. But next, the Cardinals are going up against the Mets this weekend in New York. And you look at the pitching matchups, man, it's not particularly imposing for a team that was supposed to come into this year as a super team. Why is that? We'll talk about it next year on BK and Ferrario. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So the Cardinals are going up against the New York Mets this weekend. Starts tonight, 6 o'clock first pitch for the Cardinals versus the Mets. Andre Palante on the mound for the Cardinals. It is Griffin Canning on the mound for the New York Mets. Now, this is a guy that I think, T-Bone, you brought him up in the offseason as a potential, maybe a bounce-back candidate, buy low on him. He's 28 years old. Had a 5.5 ERA last year for the LA Angels.
Oh, Cardinals are so not getting a hit today.
He has one season in his career with a sub-4 ERA. This is not like some imposing starter that you're going up against today. Now, they do have David Peterson in this series, and he was really good last year, and he's been really solid again this year so far. Kodai Senga could be a guy that they have some troubles with. He was excellent 2 years ago. Last year was mostly hurt the entirety of the season. And then they've got a guy that they're converting as a reliever into a starter in Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes has been a reliever basically the entirety of his major league career, and now he's trying to make the transition over to being a starter this year. Why is that? Why is it that there's a team that is considered to be, a World Series contender potentially, and certainly one of the super teams, right? They're paying $300 million for their roster this year. Why don't they have more pitching? Well, Sean Manaea is hurt. Frankie Montas is hurt. And they don't have anybody else on their roster that is a starting pitcher that's making more than $15 million this year. Okay, starts to make a little bit more sense. Alex, I don't mind the way they're going about it necessarily because paying for starting pitching can be a risky proposition. Just ask, the New York Mets who tried doing this a couple of years ago when they went out and got, who was it? It was Verlander and Scherzer that they paid $40+ million a year to.
That worked
To be
out.
fair, those guys were in their 40s. Like, who could have seen that coming?
But they tried that previously. What do you make of this, Alex? The Dodgers have the same thing. They've got a bunch of their high-paid starters on the injured list right now. The Mets, it's a bunch of dudes that aren't all that dissimilar from what you're throwing out there on a day-to-day basis. This is supposed to be the team that you fear, and really it's their lineup that you fear. Their pitching is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I am to make with the Mets. Like the Dodgers, to me, when they were signing all those dudes, you knew what they were doing. They were signing as many elite pitchers as possible because they're like, about 3 of these are going to be on the injured list for the majority of the season.
Sure.
Load up so that we have enough depth to get us to the postseason, and then when they're there, we'll be dominant from top to bottom. The Mets are a weird one because all offseason we were talking about, like, cool, their offense looks good. The question was, what are they going to do with Pete Alonso? They got Pete Alonso. They go get Juan Soto. But we kept saying, like, are they going to add pitching? We were even saying, did they sign Jose Quintana? He signed with Brewers. We were like, why are they not bringing Jose Quintana in? They had Manaea, but it's like you have no depth for your starting pitching. I don't know why they went that route. Maybe because they spent so much money on Juan Soto in the offensive side.
$300 million payroll.
They went and
$325 is what they're paying.
They went the side.
$350 then?
That's true. Why not $340? Am I right? They went the side of we'll just be offensive heavy and not worry about the pitching as much and address that if we need it at the trade deadline. I don't know, though, man. It doesn't keep you – the Mets are in a good position right now, but when you get into May and June, doesn't put you in a good position to succeed if guys aren't healthy.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about the Dodgers because I loved what they did, which was, hey, we're going to go get the best of the best. And you know what? We've got the depth behind them. Like Dustin May was not expected to be with them if it wasn't for injuries. That was kind of how they were going to plan about it. And that makes sense. And that's kind of now it's a different circumstance because, it's the Dodgers. That was kind of the approach the Cardinals had with McGreevy, right? We'll send him down to the minors. He'll be that guy for the break glass in case of emergency. I don't know what to make of the Mets because I feared that they were not going to have success with even Montas and with Manaea in their rotation because, I see those guys and I go, yeah, they're probably threes. Had really good years. You brought them back. I just don't see where you're going with this. And now they don't even have those guys, and yet they're still winning. Like, they're 11-7. Now, I think the Mets right now could be one of those teams that we look back on in a month and go, oh, they really had no pitching and they were surviving through the first month of the season when weird-ish happens.
Crazy part of it is they have the best ERA among starting pitchers in Major League Baseball thus far. It feels very...
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. But
it's basically just being held up by the fact that they have given up almost no home runs so far this year.
I don't believe in what the Mets rotation is, and I just don't know what to make of them. I think it goes to show you just kind of what the Cardinals are trying. Look, I've had my complaints about them with the way that they've handled their starters, like with their pitchers, to me, not being built up and ready to throw 100 pitches by the time they got to mid-April. But I maybe they're right on that. Like, maybe there is something to it. I still think it is just, dude, this is the life of pitching, right? Pitchers are going to break. It's going to happen. And you can be as cautious as you want. It's still going to happen. And I'm not saying the Mets were taking all the precautions in the world. It's just a fickle business. Those guys, those arms, they break down so easily.
Somebody on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 516, guys, tell me that you don't know what the Mets' plans are without actually saying it. Their starters their starters have the best ERA in baseball thus far. They are good at scouting pitching and choosing their starters. I think there might be some truth to that. I would also add this: like, as you go into this series, their starters for the next 4 games are Griffin Canning, Dylan Peterson, Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes. Those are the 4 starters that the Cardinals are expecting to see in this series. If I put that foursome up against the starters that you saw against Minnesota, the starters that you saw against Boston, the starters that you saw against Pittsburgh, against Philadelphia, or against Houston, to me, that's the worst foursome.
I agree.
The only one that I would take them over that you have seen thus far, starting pitching-wise, is probably LA. The Angels series, you went up against worse starting pitching than what you will see in this one. Now, the results would not dictate that. We're very early on in the season, but the results would tell you so far, this is the best starting pitching staff that you have seen early on in the season. I don't buy that at all. Are you telling me that Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, and Zach Wheeler is worse than this? No chance. No chance in hell would I take this over them. So I do think that it is a little surprising to me to see a team like the Mets at this point in the season just have such little fear of their starting pitching.
Yeah, well, and for me, like, it looks good now, and sure, maybe we don't know that they can scout pitching, but man, you just don't have depth. Like, these guys, I would imagine, are the ones that the Mets were thinking they could be our 7th and 8th starting pitchers if we need them at some point.
I could be. I'm pretty sure Canning signed a minor league deal, and that's why I was all in on the Cardinals going after him. It was because to provide depth for him. I wasn't saying they signed Canning and start him in their top 5.
So what happens in late May when, the injuries are still there and these guys are starting to get exposed a little bit more? That's the concern for the Mets more than what they're doing right now.
Peterson is the key to it all. Peterson is the one that last year he was very good for them. It was a breakout campaign for him. Previously, he had not been great for the Mets. But last year, he was a breakout performer for them as a lefty. And if you have him and Kodai Senga as your 1-2 and he performs the way that he did last year, you're feeling pretty good about that. It's just everything beyond that. You need an improvement from McGill. You need somebody to get healthy and to be good again this year. It just feels more flimsy than I would have expected. The Dodgers, yes, theirs is easily explainable. They went out and signed 100 different starters. All of them are excellent. All of them are hurt right now. But you look at the rest of the legit contenders in Major League Baseball, specifically on the National League side. LA has their plan. It makes sense. They're just hurt. The Padres have a really good rotation. The Phillies and the Braves, if the Braves can figure it out, both have really good rotations. The Mets are the outlier in this regard, man. They do not stack up against these other legit contenders in the National League right now, and it just makes me wonder, are they going to be able to live up to the expectations this season of a typical $300 million payroll team?
Part of me might like the way they're approaching this because it's like, look, let's go by with what we have. And then when we know that that's the area we need to upgrade at the trade deadline, we go out there and we spend the assets to get it.
It's hard to do, man. Those guys do not become available.
I think it's one thing if you're going to look at it and say, hey, we might need a number 3 starter, for example. It's a whole other thing when I look at that rotation. Even if they were healthy, I think they would be looking, we need an ace. Well, okay, well, those things really don't pop up very often.
Good luck.
Unless the Mets are saying, well, we're going to acquire Sandy Alcantara. Yeah, well, the Dodgers, I can tell you, are going to be in on that guy. Everybody in baseball is going to have interest in him. By the way, one other thing with the Mets rotation, I mean, you mentioned Peterson as kind of the success story for the New York Mets. A guy that maybe the Cardinals can look at, or Cardinals fans can look at and say, hey, hopefully that's what Matthew Liberatore becomes, is David Peterson.
For sure.
Because Peterson, in his first 4 seasons, he got up to the big leagues in that weird COVID year in 2020. But from his age 24 through 27 seasons, so he's a little bit older than what Libby is right now, he had a 4.51 ERA in 4 seasons and was 10% below league average. And all of a sudden last year, clicks. And now he's a guy that's leading the charge for the New York Mets.
Also, his fastball is his worst pitch.
Oh, hey.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, that is familiar.
It's really the off-speed stuff for him and the breaking stuff that works, and that's what makes him into the starter that he is. So it'll be interesting to see how this all comes together. Cardinals against the Mets this weekend. Palante, Michaelis, Libby, and Gray are your 4 starters. I think you have a slight advantage in probably at least 2 of those starts, Gray over Holmes and Palante over Canning, they have a huge advantage with the Michaelis versus Peterson side of things. But
what's the fourth one then?
Saturday will be interesting. Senga versus Libby. They have an advantage, but the way that Libby's been pitching, I think maybe that is.
I think that's kind of even.
Not as big of a advantage towards the Mets as I otherwise would have expected. Take 2 out of 4. You feel pretty good about
Libby
this.
should match up well with Nimmo and Soto, so that helps out a little bit there too.
For sure. He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk to Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. But next, it's Believe It or Not here on BK and Ferrario.
Oh, this and the Blues make the playoffs in the same week? Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start out with this one. I was doing some napkin math.
What?
Here a little bit ago.
Was it on the napkin you used while you were eating your trashy food?
That was correct.
Nice.
Over the last 4 years, the Blues have played 13 games against Kyle Connor. In those 13 games,
you're not going to like these numbers.
He has scored 7 goals, has 7 assists, and took 47 shots on goal.
How many of those goals were on the power play?
I would have to go back through.
Okay.
But he has 7 goals, 7 assists, 47 shots on goal in the 13 games against the Blues.
Yep. God, Clayton, think of it this. Clayton Keller has significantly more points against the Blues than what Kyle Connor has.
Yep.
That's how much that dude has had the Blues number.
Believe it or not, the Blues are able to hold him to 2 goals or fewer in this series. 2 or fewer goals in the next 7 or fewer games, depending on how far.
Man, I'm not going to believe that. Even if they win this series, he's still going to be the guy that scores a lot. I think if you would have set that at like 3.5, I would have taken the under, because I don't think he's going to go off in this series. Today, the Blues had a defensive structured practice. Jim Montgomery knows what the focus is going to be against Winnipeg, and it's going to be limiting the amount of rush chances that Winnipeg gets. I think he gets about 3, so I would say believe it, since it's more than 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe they're going to be able to hold him to 2 or fewer. I think he's going to... The best players get the results they need in these kind of atmospheres. He's going to show up. He's going to be the toughest player for the Blues to handle. I mean, he's going to score on a power play or 2. I'm not going to believe this. I don't think they're going to be able to hold him to 2 or fewer.
I'm with you. I think he ends up scoring a decent amount in this one. So I'm going back through right now, Alex, just over the last 2 years. He has 4 goals against the Blues. Only 1 of them were on the power play. I'll have to go back further. I can give you those here in just a minute, but that's what I've done so far.
Believe it or not, fellas, the 4th line outscores the 3rd line in this series.
Not. Zach Bolduc's going to be a real threat in this series. I think Zach Bolduc's game translates pretty well to the playoffs, so I'll say not.
I'm going to say not, and it's because of Bolduc, but I also think if that ends up happening, that something went wrong for the Blues. That means that 3rd line became unreliable once again, and Jim Montgomery's not using it in the 3rd period, and they're not able to roll out the 4 lines like we've talked about that's been successful for them. I think that would be a recipe for disaster for the Blues.
I'm not going to believe this. So go ahead.
I have your answer. 1 power play goal against the Blues over the last 4 years.
So there you go.
Only
That's
1.
even more concerning that it's 5-on-5 is where he kills you. That's how you're going to have to stop it. I'm not believing this as well. I think that Jim Montgomery is going to use that WTF line the same way that Winnipeg's going to be using that Lowry, Tanev, and Appleton line. It's going to be going up against the other team's best lines. I don't know how much you'll see Thomas against Scheifele as much as you'll see the WTF line against Scheifele. In that Lowry line, I can almost guarantee you they're going to be matched up against Thomas Buchnevich and Jake Neighbors.
T-Bone?
Guys, believe it or not, Jordan Walker will finish above league average this season. Right now, right now he has dropped to 95 OPS plus. Been a little bit of a rut.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really close. I think he hovers right around there. I'll say believe it because I think he gets better batted ball luck eventually. He's hitting the crap out of the baseball. That's not the problem. He's just on the ground all the time. This is what we talked about earlier in the week, where we were like, hey, at the moment, it looks pretty good. The numbers are up, but man, a lot of the under the hood numbers do not look great for Jordan Walker. That's not to suggest that he's been an abomination or some kind of a huge problem for them offensively. And defensively, he's been great. It just hasn't. The production doesn't necessarily match what the numbers suggest that it will be long term. So I'll say I think he ends up below 100 on the OPS plus scale, but I'll go right above it. Let's be optimistic. It'll be close. It'll be close.
That's what I was going to do. I was going to be optimistic. I think Jordan Walker's looked good. Even when he's had ruts, he's found a way out of them. I think he's going to be probably like 102, 103, something like that.
And I don't think that's a disaster. It shows a little bit of improvement. It's stabilizing. And then you've said this for a while, T-Bone. Next year becomes the year where you want him to take off.
Yeah, I have a tough time deciding because I think he's either going to be slightly below, like 97, or he's going to be slightly above, like what Win was. I think he was 102 last year, if my memory serves correct. It's just the ground ball thing just feels alarming still because it's even higher, slightly higher than what it was last year, and last year was really bad. I'll say he ends up being slightly below, and I agree. I don't think that's a failure. I think your hope is that he gains some confidence at the big league level, and then next year can really piece everything together and take off.
And the reason for that, the reason why I think he might be right around league average is not the average, it's not the on-base percentage, it's the slug. If you're on the ground as often as he is, it becomes really difficult to produce the slug that you need in order to boost that thing up, and that's what could take a little bit of time for him to get to. I think he might still have some faith there, but I don't know that this is going to be the season that he unlocks it. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for a couple Believe It or Nots before we get to Joey Vitale on the other side. Guys, believe it or not, the Blues will be a top 5 team in goals scored next year.
Believe it. I think you're going to have the same offense, possibly Dalibor Dvorsky. The defensemen are going to be the same. You'll have a full season of Cam Fowler. I think their power play is going to be top 10, and I think their offense is going to be in that category.
I'll say not. I think top 10, but not top 5.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning. I'm going to say not. I think they will be a top 10 off. Top 5 is going to be really hard and a significant jump. So I'll say not.
314 asks, believe it or not, Blues first line outscores the Jets top line.
I'll believe that one because if you're going to want to win, your best players need to be better than their best players. I'll believe that.
Say not. I think your second line ends up becoming, if you win this series, I think the second line is the one that really puts you over the top.
Yeah, I'm going to say not as well. I mean, you mentioned your best players got to be your best if you're going to win this series. The only reason I'm going to say not is because I lean towards Jets winning the series. So then in theory, that means I think their top line outperforms
Did you
yours.
learn your lesson from the montage yesterday?
Hey, man, if we want another great montage after round 1, I got to keep feeding the clips. Okay?
We'll continue discussing the Blues with Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, and, of course, 101 ESPN. He joins us next here on BK and Ferrario.
Taylor Hendricks here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues in the Stanley Cup playoffs as they've got game one against the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday. Well, pregame coverage starting at 4 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 5 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. And Joey Vitale will join us next here on BK and Ferrario. The Sports Center is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we got playoff hockey here in St. Louis. It begins this weekend with the Blues versus the Jets. Of course, you'll be able to hear all of that coverage right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. The one and only Joey Vitale will be on the call for that on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. And he joins us now as he does each and every Thursday on BK and Ferrario. Joe, we appreciate the time as always. Looking forward to hearing you on the call this week. And how you doing, my friend?
Joey! I hope you enjoy Winnipeg!
Yeah, how am I doing, boys? Good to hear from you. Let's see. I'm having to go back through my winter stuff that I just packed off and put away for the summer in the basement here, getting my winter jacket back out, dusting it off because it's going to be cold in Winnipeg. That Eriksson Ek, old Eriksson Ek from the Minnesota Wild decided to score with under 30 seconds to go to send my butt to Winnipeg instead of Vegas. So not exactly happy. But at the end of the day, it's playoff hockey, so it's not a lot to get upset about. Looking forward to this first round.
Joe, look at it this way, man. We avoided the 9 o'clock puck drops, the 10 o'clock puck drops, the 9:30 puck drops. You get Central Division puck drops.
It's a great point, Alex. I know it's an early start on Saturday for Game 1. I think it's even earlier on Game 2 in Winnipeg, a little bit or sooner than normal.
Noon for Game 4?
Nooner? How about that? Get home and have some dinner, have Sunday supper.
Beautiful.
After Game 4, can't ask for more than that. If the Blues could just do me a hugest favor and sweep this series,
amen.
And then we will not have to go back twice. We'll just go back once. So that would be ideal. But you're right. Good times. This is going to be I joke about it. Wanting Vegas for the weather and the entertainment. Obviously, I think there's a lot of pluses, and it's easier for fans probably to get to than crossing the border, which is certainly an advantage. But this is that Eriksson Ek goal. We'll see how this thing shakes down. But him scoring that goal to me, it made the Blues' life, I believe, a little bit tougher in the long haul. I actually think that the matchup against Winnipeg in some ways is better for the Blues than the Vegas Golden Knights. And I talked to a couple of players about this a few weeks ago. Not overly big and physical defensemen for Winnipeg. And they have a lot of inexperience. Those two things stand out. For Vegas, big, physical D, and they have just a pedigree of champions on that team, and experience matters, guys. So those are some of the things that stand out about why I like the matchup for Winnipeg over Vegas. But when I mean long haul, we'll see how this thing shakes out, because this does keep you in the Central Division. And this Central Division, it is a bear. It's been a bear ever since the Four Nations. The record for Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, and the Blues, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it was absolutely mind-blowing how good all four of those teams were in the National Hockey League. So some good teams are going to have to face. Eventually, you're going to have to run through Dallas or Colorado if you get through Winnipeg. So in the long haul, this could be a tough thing, but I think the Blues are certainly up for the challenge.
How do you think they match up against Winnipeg, Joe? You mentioned the lack of the big, tree trunk defenseman that you have with Florida. Vegas certainly has that as well. How do you feel like the Blues match up against this version of Winnipeg?
I think they can clearly have one distinct thing that sets them apart, and it's completely within their control. And I actually think it's going to be the biggest factor on whether the Blues come out on the right side of this thing or not. Unfortunately, it's not goaltending. And I say that there's only maybe one team in this conference that I think that you can almost look at how the Blues could potentially be out goaltended, and that's by the numbers. I think he pushes into a Game 7. I give Binnington the nod, but Hellebuck's numbers with the structure in front of him has been so doggone good this year. I think their power play has an edge. I think that their depth has an edge. And I say that with all due respect to the team that I love, because they're President Trophy champions for a reason. This is a good team, a deep team. But the one thing the Blues can do, and I know it's going to be important, and I know that the head coach, Jim Montgomery, and the assistants and all leadership crew is going to make sure they stay on it, they have to absolutely punish them. They have to just push them right through the wall, and they have to hit them and get a lick on those guys every time they can. You know, I go back to the San Jose series back in 2019. After the Blues lose Game 1 against the Sharks in San Jose, and it was kind of a lopsided affair. The Blues really were never in that game. I remember thinking a lot of fans were concerned about, you just get through Dallas, you finally get to the third round, and all of a sudden, are we just going to kind of blow this thing away? I run into Steve Ott on the day between games 1 and 2, and I asked him just a couple open-ended questions, and I'm just trying to get a read on his energy of, like, was he as concerned as a lot of other people were? And he was so calm, and I'll never forget his words, something along the lines of, this is going to be a long series, boys, and we are going to beat them down. And he was just so matter-of-fact about it. And his goal and the team's goal in that series was to physically punish the San Jose Sharks to the point that you wanted to hurt them and you wanted to eliminate them from games where, of course, then they didn't have any chance left. We all remember Game 6 at home. They had half a bench. Erik Karlsson was needing help to get over the boards. I mean, the Blues absolutely punished the Sharks. The Blues now in this series, and it's going to be a challenge because Winnipeg is a well-structured team that anticipates well, moves the puck well, so it's going to be hard to get your licks in. But if they can really focus on getting good dumps in the forecheck and getting that speed in there and just punishing the Josh Morris of that team, Morrissey, you can punish those types of players. It may not really put a dent in games 1 and 2, but over 3, 4, 5, and 6, hopefully 7, you're going to start to see them kind of wear off. So the physicality, to answer your question there, BK, that to me is going to be the biggest factor for the St. Louis Blues if they can kind of come up on the better end of this thing.
Joe, it doesn't sound optimistic for Dylan Holloway, still not practicing with the team. But, man, watching them play against Utah and how Jimmy Snuggerud looked on that line with Shannon Kyrou, it did feel like they got back to rolling 4 lines consistently, which, in my opinion, is going to be one of the major factors into this series against Winnipeg.
Well, definitely, because you're going up a team, like I mentioned there, Alex, you're going up against a team that has extreme amount of depth, and they run 4 lines, and they run them very, very well. The one thing that stands out about Winnipeg and the small sample size where the Blues played, I've watched a couple other games of them this year when the Blues weren't playing them. They run 4 lines, and they all play the same way. That's what makes them a special team. They win a President's Trophy not because of the different identities on different lines. I mean, certainly you have goal scorers on some and shot blockers on another, but even that top line, even that Scheifele line, Scheifele is an incredible, I don't think he gets enough credit for his 200-foot game, but he is an incredible 200-foot centerman who can be physical, can defend, can block shots, but also can score. And then you look at the Adam Lowry towards the bottom of the lineup, same thing. Can chip in, but he's physical. He plays on an edge. He boxes out. He's got good strength on pucks, and he competes like a son of a gun. So they have competitors, physical guys, and guys that truly just want to play the same way on every single line. So when you play the Jets, it's a frustrating style where it's just you can't breathe sometimes. I always imagine like you're in the ocean and you fall overboard and the waves are crashing and you're just trying to stay above to breathe, and the waves are just still coming and there's really no help coming. That's kind of how it feels when you play a team like Winnipeg. You just can't find any rest because no matter who's out there, they're going to chip it in. They're going to play with speed. They're going to play physical. And obviously they got great goaltending. So it's going to be a full group effort. They're going to have to lean on all 4 lines. The biggest line for me that really can make or break this series, I think, is going to be that 70 line with Oscar Sundqvist because your top 6 are going to be clicking. They've been doing so well. Thomas is maybe the hottest hockey player heading into the NHL playoffs this season. And then you're looking at a second line now with Jimmy Snuggerud finding his groove. That seems to be really kind of pulling the weight. Jordan Kyrou, 2 goals on his last game, so he's feeling it. And the 4th line, my gosh, I mean, they're the best 4th line in the National Hockey League. They're used to start games, start periods, end games. I mean, they're as dependable as can be. They don't make really any mistakes out there. So if you want to run 4, the question mark does become that Sundqvist line with, of course, a lot of inexperience for Zachary Bolduc as far as games like this, even though he has shown up in an incredible way at the second half of the season. And then Matthew Joseph, who's kind of been in and out of the lineup because of Dvorsky and, of course, when Dylan Holloway was healthy. So that line right there, it could be the deal breaker. It could be to kind of make this series or break the series. And we'll just kind of see how it pans out here in game one.
We'll see what it all looks like on the ice as the Blues take on the Winnipeg Jets beginning on Saturday at 5 o'clock. You'll hear full coverage right here in your home of the Blues 101 ESPN with Alex Ferrario pregame along with Joey Vitale and then Chris Kerber as well along for the call. Joey, appreciate the time as always, my man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy yourself up in Winnipeg. We'll talk with you again next week.
Hey, sounds good, boys. You guys have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Same to you. That's Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every Thursday here on BK and Ferrario. It's interesting. He thinks that I feel like most of the analysts that we've talked about this series with bring up the physicality of the Blues as being the potential deciding factor for them.
It's the reason you won 12 in a row. I mean, go back and watch those 12 games. You drove every single player through the boards. And what didn't happen when they lost their 3 in a row? They weren't playing the physical brand of hockey. They were going more of the neutral zone speed, scoring off the rush, hoping for mistakes. It's the only way you're going to beat Winnipeg. And the tough part is Winnipeg's going to play that. Their mindset is probably the exact same. Winnipeg's probably thinking, look, they just played a ton of hockey to get into the playoffs. We're physical. We're big. We drive them through the wall, they're going to be depleted. It's going to come down to who can outman the other person in a 7-game series.
We did get this question from the 636. Guys, can you ask Joey about Thomas's status? He wasn't at practice today. For any of you that may just be tuning in, Robert Thomas did miss practice today. He was not a part of the morning skate, but after practice, Jim Montgomery told the media he's expected to be a part of morning skate tomorrow. So It sounds like it's fine, just maintenance stuff for him. He left the third period of the other night, did not play the rest of the way. They said that was precautionary, and then today they decided to keep him off of the ice. So it doesn't sound like anything too serious for Robert Thomas. The full expectation, based on everything the team is saying publicly, he'll be good to go for Saturdays.
They asked him about it, and he said, look, we did a really strong defensive brand of practice today, and he said he doesn't need those reps. Which
sounds good.
I mean, can you blame him? I mean, Thomas is incredible defensively. And I was looking at that too, BK. The Blues outscored Winnipeg at 5-on-5 this season. They had, I think it was 10 more goals than Winnipeg. Now, Winnipeg was the best defensive team at 5-on-5. And a lot of that is because of how great their goaltender was. But you can beat them at 5-on-5. It's going to come down to physicality, and it's going to come down to can you find ways to eliminate their offense.
I know this sounds crazy. It might be a series where you kind of want to play even at 5-on-5, and then you win the you win the special teams. Boom, win the series.
Yeah, or you get one late goal, 5-on-5. I mean, that's how you beat Winnipeg the last time you played them. Think of the 2 games that were decisive in that first round in 2019.
Just no 6-on-5, please. So that doesn't go for the Blues.
No. Well, I'm a little bit more comfortable with 6-on-5 because Parayko's back.
Okay.
I'm telling you, that's the closer, man. That's the Ryan Helsley.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, the Rewind is next here on 101 ESPN. Along with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is also where you can go to see the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature. I know the Fast Lane has a bunch of those that they like to get to throughout the day. You can take care of that over there. You can always check out the podcast over there as well, and that is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. All right, Alex, the news today is the Blues' schedule going into the playoffs. They will be playing on Saturday and Monday in Winnipeg. That's a 5 o'clock puck drop on Saturday and then 6:30 on Monday. And then they've got a little bit of time off, more time than normal for their travel days. They will once again play on Thursday here in St. Louis. That'll be the first game here. It's an 8:30 puck drop next Thursday, a week from today. And then again on Sunday.
There's
Thursday
2 days off.
and Sunday. 2 days off between game 2 and 3, and then another 2 days off between 3 and 4. Question for you. Is there a team that has an advantage based upon the rest? Does it play more into one team versus the other in your mind?
If I were to handicap it, I'd say Winnipeg has a little bit more of an advantage because of that, because they've got guys that can return in this series. Like Gabe Vilardi is day-to-day. Ehlers, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back. And the only guy that we're talking about for the Blues is Holloway. And again, it sure doesn't sound like, just in terms of the rumors and the mumbles going on right now, that he's not going to be back for you in this postseason. So if that's the case, I'd say it slightly favors Winnipeg to get Gabe Vilardi back. But look, for the Blues, I mean, you just played a ton of hockey. You get 3 days off before the first game of the playoffs, and then between games 3 and 5, you get 4 days off. Like, that's massive for the Blues to rest up. And if whoever's going to win the physical brand of hockey in this series, that's what it's going to come down to. Who can heal faster?
That was the other thing to me. I do wonder if the Blues are trying to win with that style, the more physical brand. I do wonder if the extra time off maybe helps Winnipeg a little bit as well.
It could.
Where if you have this series condensed into fewer days, it becomes those hits compound
pile up
a little bit more than what they will if there's extra time off.
But
so
it's pretty
hard to say.
It's a depleting feeling when you're a team that's like, man, this team just is relentless. They will not stop. You get 2 days off, you think you're healed, and then they come right back at you with that.
Blues off tomorrow. We will certainly be talking about them plenty here on BK and Ferrario as we preview this series between the Blues and the Jets. We're expecting to have a Jets analyst on with us tomorrow. Cardinals back in action this evening. They are in the midst of this 13 games and 13 days stretch. They're going up against the New York Mets on the road at Citi Field. Palante versus Griffin Canning tonight. I think this should be a game, Alex, that the Cardinals have a slight advantage when it comes to their pitching matchup between them and the Mets. This is another one. Mets have a decent number of lefty hitters in their lineup. And when you look at Palante and Liberator, any of those kinds of matchups, it does kind of lean in the direction of the St. Louis Cardinals with the way that their pitching is set up. So tonight, to me, is a game that you'd really like to see the Cardinals win because tomorrow's a tough one. It's Michaelis on the mound, and those are always just days where any wins you get when Michaelis is on the mound right now, given the way that he's been pitching, it's a plus. It's gravy, but you kind of need Palante and Libby between him to be able to give you innings and to give you a real shot to be able to win these games.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a series that I think you should win. At worst, you should be taking 2 of 4 against the Mets, especially with the pitching matchups that we discussed of Palante having the advantage and Sonny Gray having the advantage. This is going to be a real test, though, for the pitching because not saying that they didn't go up against this. Phillies has a dominant lineup, but look, man, you're going up against arguably one of the best hitters in the game right now with Juan Soto, and you've got Pete Alonso.
Who's been great this year, by the way.
They've got an offense that could do some damage, and is this another one of the Boston Red Sox series? That's what I'm kind of curious about.
And much like Boston, some of these guys have been a little off this year. Now, Alonso has been great to start out the season, but beyond that, guys are getting off to some slow starts. Juan Soto not hitting for average yet. He's hitting for a little bit of power, still getting on base because he always does. But he's not hitting for any average so far, and most of their other guys are below average offensively thus far. So you're hitting them at hopefully the right time. Hopefully this isn't the series where it snaps back into place. Similar to Houston in that regard. Houston was a team that you look at the lineup, you look up and down the names, you're like, okay, it's a really good lineup. But then you look at the numbers so far, they just haven't hit yet. So Hopefully, this is good timing for the Cardinals. If it is, maybe you end up getting 2 or 3 out of this series as well. You go into Atlanta feeling pretty good about it, potentially over 500 heading into next week. We've got plenty to discuss tomorrow on the show. Blues back in action this weekend. We will break down game 1 in this series against the Winnipeg Jets in every possible way for you guys tomorrow. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Redbird Report will be coming out later on this evening, so be sure to stay tuned for that over on the podcast page. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.